Happy Friday! Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Sean O'Connell here, James Peterson producing for me today. We'll send you into the weekend, hopefully, with a little bit of information and entertainment. We'll let you air your grievances later in the afternoon. That's coming up in 2.5 hours. Plenty to discuss in the sports landscape at present moment. You have Utah basketball in action on the men's and women's side. You've got Utah Hockey Club home for a back-to-back. You've got college football playoff action on your television tonight. You've got NFL wildcard weekend. You can hear both the college football and NFL playoffs right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. You've got a rivalry game in wild card action in the NFL. Real rivalries are harder to come by in pro sports than they used to be, but one still thrives and is strong in the NFL. We'll get into some of that on the show today. And, of course, one half of your national championship game in college football is set after an incredible back-and-forth contest last night between Penn State and Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish have moved on. A bit of a slow start for the boys from South Bend, but they got the job done despite a shaky night from Riley Leonard, their starting quarterback. Defense comes through, gives them the ball back. Late in the game, when it looked like we were probably playing for overtime in a tie game, interception, and you have to run a couple of plays, and then, of course, you get the field goal, which in college football, when you send a kicker out there to decide the outcome of a game, it's always a little bit nerve-wracking, whether it's to make that field goal to tie it, send it to overtime, to make the field goal to win it, whatever. It can be scary in college football, still scary sometimes in the NFL, but those guys are a lot more reliable. Jeter puts it through on a 4th and 8. Penn State has, 7 seconds to try to make something happen after that. And the Fighting Irish advance. They are moving on. Their head coach, Marcus Freeman, 39 years of age, took over for Brian Kelly after Brian Kelly became, I think he was the first one that, at least in my books, had decided to move on from what I had previously called in college football a destination job. And anyone who listened to me in my previous stint at ESPN 700, I talked about these things all the time. I talked about when Kyle Whittingham and the speculation was going on with whether or not he would stay at Utah forever. I always talked about how there are very, very few destination jobs, very few places that are the pinnacle. They're the end of the road in college football. And I was very convicted in my belief, 7 to 10 years ago, that you were unbelievably lucky to have Kyle Whittingham view Utah as his destination job. That is still true. But I was just dug all the way in on the idea that jobs like Notre Dame, jobs like Oklahoma, jobs like USC, like Alabama, you don't go anywhere when you get one of those jobs unless it's the NFL. If you're a college football coach, that was supposed to be the pinnacle. And then Brian Kelly showed me that that's not true. Lincoln Riley showed me that that's not true. Any assortment of guys, Jimbo Fisher showed me it's not true of Florida State, that there's always a bigger fish. And you might say, well, you were just wrong about the ones that you thought were destination jobs, like USC had more money than Oklahoma did. All right, I'll listen to that one. Nobody's got more money than Notre Dame. All right, nobody. There's nobody out there that can flex a bigger checkbook muscle for their football program than Notre Dame. And Brian Kelly had decided that he'd reached the sort of maximum potential of that program under his usage, so he needed to go somewhere that was going to pay him a little bit more, or was, I think more importantly, more relevantly, was going to provide him a stronger opportunity to win national championships, because LSU has done that more recently than Notre Dame has. In any case, his departure from what I had always believed to be a true destination job opened that job up for Marcus Freeman, who was still in his mid-30s when he took over the position. And there was some controversy with that. There were some people who were like, all right, I mean, everyone in and around the program loved the guy. But remember, when you're talking about Notre Dame, there's a lot of powerful, influential boosters. There's folks all around the country who have some level of investment in Notre Dame's success. And he was not unanimously celebrated as the hire. And then, of course, in his first season, his first couple of seasons, and even early this season, there were some shaky moments. But look where they are at now. Notre Dame has pushed all the way through. They silenced some of the doubt by beating a Penn State team that had itself silenced some of its doubters. Notre Dame had the, third easiest schedule of the college football playoff teams to get there. And now they've looked great in advancing to this position. They get over the hump. That is Penn State. Now looming is the winner of whoever wins tonight's game. He's 39 years old, James Peterson. He is 39. Yet to see 40 and already a win away from the absolute highest high you can achieve as a college football head coach. 39 years of age.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you can't, even if you, because there's plenty of Notre Dame haters out there, even if you hate Notre Dame, you have to feel good about what Marcus Freeman has been able to do. Remember his first year, he lost to Marshall, and who was the other? He lost to two group of 5 teams, right, to start the year, or maybe it was a lesser Power 5 team. They started 0-2 in any case. This year, they lose to Northern Illinois in week 2. I thought he loses another game. This is probably going to be his last year after that Northern Illinois loss. And remembering what happened in his first year, starting 0-2, one of those losses to Marshall. And then 13 straight wins, and they look dominant. And they mentioned Dan Patrick mentioned in his show today, in his stat of the day, 6 of those against ranked teams. Now, 3 of those coming in the last 3 weeks. All of them are ranked in the playoff.
Which, by the way,
but still,
more wins over AP top 5 teams, AP top 10 teams already than Brian Kelly ever had as the Notre Dame head coach. This season.
That's crazy. Kelly was there for close to a decade, right? A little over a decade?
Yeah, I think he was there 11 years.
11 years. And they went to a national championship game. They went to a couple college football playoff games. So that's, wow. I did not know it was more than Brian Kelly in his 11-year tenure. That's amazing what Marcus Freeman has done. And I'm not just saying that because he's a Buckeye.
He's 33-9 as the head coach at Notre Dame, and he's 4-1 in bowl games now. And the guy, yes, he did play for Ohio State, and James Peterson today is dressed like he also plays for Ohio State. Yeah. Listen, just to peel back the curtain a little bit, in pre-show. James is fired up.
Stand a little bit so they can see more of it on the
James
cameras
is fired
here.
up, ladies and gentlemen. Tune in on the YouTube right now, and you will be able to see.
Not all of it, but I got the hat.
He's got the Ohio State hat. He's got the Ohio State jersey. He also had a hoodie on over top of the jersey, and he walks in to my spot behind the microphone here, and he plants his foot up on the desk, up on the broadcast desk, just staking his claim, and shows that he's wearing Ohio State socks.
I can't lift my leg high enough to show the socks on air. I'm going to have to take my shoes and socks off, and no one wants that.
No, it's
Porter
fine.
has to be in here after me. We're not going to do that.
Keep the foot fungus contained.
But yes, I wouldn't normally wear that much Ohio State stuff. First, it's a college football playoff semifinal, so it's a big game. But also, I got most of this for Christmas. I've had the jersey. People have seen this jersey for a long time. It's a Zeke Elliott jersey. But the hat, the hoodie, and the socks I all got for Christmas. I'm like, why not? Let's just wear all of it.
Why not?
Yeah.
There's not a bigger game on the calendar, to date at least, for your Ohio State Buckeyes. And you know what? If you wear it again, should they advance to a national championship game, which a lot of people and the betting odds say that they will, then you can wear it all again, James. It's all right. You could be an Ohio State fan, even though it makes no sense. Marcus Freeman, 39 years of age, has the Fighting Irish on the precipice of a championship. Now, it's going to be tough sledding against Ohio State if that's who they end up playing. It's going to be very difficult against Texas if that's who they end up playing. But you got past Penn State last night without Riley Leonard playing his best game. And it was a highlight of the thing that we've known for years and years and years. And coaches and players who've been close to the game have known since the beginning of football time. Quarterback play is so, so significantly important. And it was the reason why Notre Dame was in a shaky position in parts of this game. It was the reason ultimately why they won the game, because Drew Aller on the other side, who has been reliable for Penn State, he made a critical, unforgivable, if you're a Penn State fan, disgusting error with the game on the line when you didn't have to do it at that point. And by the way, Greg McElroy, who played the position himself, 2 plays before the – do you have the sound?
I have the sound.
Okay.
You want me to play it?
Play the sound right now. This is Greg McElroy, again, who was a college football quarterback himself at a national championship caliber Alabama program. He had this to say right before it all went south for Penn State.
How do they play it with 47 seconds to go? Are you aggressive or are you cautious?
I'm aggressive. I mean, I got 2 timeouts. I feel like the momentum's been back and forth. The quarterback, for the most part, all season long, his whole career, Drew Aller's made good decisions. He's got 50-plus touchdowns, only 9 career interceptions. He's not likely a guy that's going to put the ball in harm's way. I trust him. I think he can do it. And I would empower him in this situation to drive him down the field for a game-winning field goal.
As long as 49. Aller hit as he throws, and it is intercepted!
So McElroy spends 30 seconds talking about how you can trust Drew Aller and he never makes mistakes. And by the way, a factual observation, it's true, his touchdown-interception ratio.
Backed it up with the great stat, 50 touchdowns, 9 interceptions.
His efficiency numbers. I mean, that Drew Aller, when you look at what he does, he's not like this, oh, my gosh, look at that cannon. Oh, my gosh, look at his incredible running ability. He's not this game-breaker QB. I won't use the term game manager because everyone creates such a negative connotation around that. But, you know, he is a solid QB for a talented team with a stifling defense and, you know, an unbelievable run game. And he does what he has to do. He understands his assignment. And he did for most of this season, not for most, for all of this season, up until that moment. And he threw late back across his body over the middle. And Notre Dame makes the play. Christian Gray makes the play that ends up really deciding the game. The kick decides the game, but that was after a pass interference call took away an interception from Notre Dame earlier in the game, after the back and forth and Notre Dame turning the ball over a couple times with less than a minute to play in a tie game, the unforgivable mistake made by Drew Aller. And that, to me, I have no investment in Penn State football success at all. I'm not a fan. I'm not an alum, obviously, but I have so much sorrow in my heart for a guy whose season has been really, really solid up until that exact moment. It happens to be the most costly mistake that you can make. And when you're not the best player on the team, when you're not the guy who is the reason you're in that position, like you kind of have to live by the sword, die by the sword if you're a team like Colorado was, where Shedeur Sanders is a huge part of why you had that improvement. If he makes that kind of mistake, you look at it and you're just like, well, he's the reason we were here in the first place. I guess you got to live with it. Cam Rising, right, when he would make those kinds of mistakes for Utah football, you kind of had to live with it and be like, well, he's the reason we're here. So even though it's difficult for all of us, you got to kind of like give him a little bit more grace. I don't know that Drew Aller gets that level of grace in his own locker room. I mean, they're going to be cool with him about it, but man, that is a gut-wrenching mistake for someone to make, and you could see how bad it hurt him and hear it in his voice. And, you know, he talked about in the postgame, he said, I should have just thrown the ball away after the first 2 progressions were not there. And absolutely that's true. I understand the urgency with time wasting and running down, but you're in a tie game. You're on your own side of the 50-yard line. And the only thing you cannot do is turn that ball over, and that's what happened. I'm glad it did because I'm a much more of a Notre Dame fan than I am a Penn State fan. I wanted to see the Fighting Irish advance. But yikes. Poor Drew Aller.
Yeah, it's rough. And yeah, in hindsight, he's absolutely right. You have to know that worst case scenario needs to be that we go to overtime. Worst case scenario cannot be that we might lose on a game-winning field goal like they did. And unfortunately, he was trying to make a play, and it didn't work out for him. And that's tough. I even said it off air to you. I've been a little annoyed with a lot of, like, Drew Aller's got great arm talent. He's got all, as they say, he's got all the tools to be a great quarterback. He just never actually showed it enough. And I don't know if that's more on him or more on the coaching. So I'm not happy that he had a bad thing happen to him at the end of this game, but it is a little bit of validation that, hey, like, he's not near as good, or maybe the coaches aren't near as good to put him in positions to be successful, or else we would have seen a whole lot more out of Drew Aller. They talked about this Drew Aller as like a guy that could be a generational quarterback in the Big Ten and at Penn State, and it just never really came to fruition. He would have been that guy that you talked about when you're talking about Shedeur Sanders, and probably ought to have been that guy based on his talent, his raw talent, that, hey, we live and die with whatever happens. Unfortunately, that didn't quite turn out to be the case in his career in Penn State. And yeah, just an awful way to end probably his career with a poor throw on an interception.
So Notre Dame beats Indiana, Georgia, and now Penn State to advance to a national championship game. Riley Leonard, as I mentioned, his game was not spectacular. 15 of 23, 223 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. That could have been incredibly costly if his defense hadn't come up for him. Steve Angeli, who had to come in relief when Riley Leonard had to leave the game for a little while, actually 6 of 7 for 44 yards, which was pretty crucial in a close back-and-forth game. Drew Aller threw the exact same number of passes. He completed 12 of 23, 135 yards, under 6 yards per play, per completion at 5.9, 1 interception. And Penn State, you want to talk about a wild stat? Penn State had 0 completions to a wide receiver in this game.
Oh, my gosh. I didn't realize that.
Isn't that the craziest thing you've heard?
So all the running backs and Warren, tight end, basically.
Yeah. Tyler Warren had 6 catches for 75 yards, did not find the end zone, which you knew was a huge part of Notre Dame's game plan. Just don't let that guy get behind you. Don't let that guy get through you. He did convert some very crucial first downs for Penn State, but everyone else was either a tight end or a running back.
You didn't have a self-completion in there somewhere?
There was
like
there was none of the tip ball back to him kind of situations.
Or like the Josh Allen self-touchdown pass on the lateral against your Niners.
Yeah, well, you got to.
I just realized now that was the Niners game. As I said,
messed up. Why are you doing that? But I mean, look, you only had 135 yards.
Yeah.
Receiving, or 135 yards passing in this game, but 3 tight ends and 3 running backs, and that's it.
Yeah, so there's an argument to be made about wide receivers not stepping up too.
Well, there's a huge argument for that, but nobody at Penn State is going to say, well, that's a individual talent problem. Look, we can say this because this has been, if there's been a position that you question, if there's been a position of, for lack of a better term, weakness for Utah football, even in their best years, it's been hard for them to find like an elite wide receiver class. And when you talk about some of the most important games that they have played and what has hurt them, it's been going up against teams that do have elite wide receiver talent. And obviously, front of mind with that one would be the Rose Bowl game against Ohio State, where even the backups for Ohio State were better than any starting receivers you had seen that year in the Pac-12. And that was a Pac-12 conference with like Michael Pittman and some of those guys. I mean, that was, in hindsight, you look at it and you're like, okay, well, yeah. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., ended up being a first-round draft pick.
A Heisman finalist the next season.
And Emeka Egbuka is going to end up being an NFL wide receiver. Or
2 seasons later.
In any case, you look at it and you're just like, all right, so Penn State found their way to a college football playoff semifinal with some of the same question marks that Utah football has dealt with offensively. It is completely and James Franklin is going to have to answer for this. How do you not have completions to your wide receivers in a game that big? Is your recruiting at that position that bad? Historically, that has not been the case. They've produced some pretty good wide receivers. Is your game plan so dedicated to Tyler Warren and to Katron Allen that you can't see the forest for the trees and you're completely wasting some weapons? That is one of the craziest stats I have ever seen in a high-stakes college football game. 0 completions to a position group whose entire job in a game is to catch passes. And is that an indictment against Drew Aller? As you were talking about, you could talk about a guy being, an incredible quarterback, and they're showing his, you'd probably call them lowlights right now on SportsCenter. A couple of throws that were directed to wide receivers that he missed. The interception that ended up being the biggest game-changing moment was a pass intended for a wide receiver. All of those things. But who is to blame in a game when you don't have a completion to a wide receiver? Is that the offensive coordinator? Is that the passing game? Is it the wide receivers coach? Is it the head coach himself? Is it the quarterback? You're not going to win, James. We could go back. I'll give you a homework assignment. Everyone listening and James Peterson, whoever gets it done the first time, find me a New Year's Six game, a BCS game, a championship caliber game, a conference championship game. Find me one where you did not complete a pass to a wide receiver and were victorious in the game. You'd probably have to go back to the 1940s.
Yeah, like when the forward pass was a new thing. Yeah. Like that's would be my guess. One of those receivers, by the way, and I haven't followed it that closely to know how productive he was this season, or even maybe he's hurt even. But one of those receivers was a really productive wide receiver at Ohio State before transferring this year. Julian Fleming. Like they have talent.
Can you imagine being Julian Fleming? And I don't love this because players make their decisions and they have to live with those decisions. But can you imagine being a guy who left Ohio State in that wide receiver room, and we're like, okay, I'm going to Penn State. This is going to be a good situation. You battle all the way to the playoff in a productive year for your offense, for yourself, for everything. Yes, a defensive-minded team, but still a year where you and your group have done some nice things and you individually have done some nice things. And then you get to this level. You get to the semifinal game. No pass completions to your position group. None to you, none to your entire position room.
Yeah,
and you're
that's rough.
And by the way, you're going to tune in tonight and you're going to watch Ohio State and Will Howard probably go north of 300 yards. And a bunch of those. He's going to have 17 completions or more to the wide receivers, most likely. Ugh! Buyer's remorse.
Yeah. I'm reading, I believe it's our guy, Shahan Jayaraja's article on it, too. Shout out to Shahan. Great. A friend of the program. He's talking about, this is, to your point, this is a program under James Franklin in recent years. Like, Chris Godwin was a Nittany Lion. KJ Hamler was a Nittany Lion. Like, this is what you were saying. It doesn't seem to be a recruiting problem. They, like I said, they just got Julian Fleming this year out of the transfer portal, a really productive college receiver who was just maybe not quite good enough to crack Ohio State's top 4 or 5 this year because they're always loaded. Like, man, it's mystifying how that can happen. The other thing, they said he was 0-4. 0-4 when targeting wide receivers. He only targeted wide receivers 4 times. So that speaks to a coaching thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy to me. I don't need you to have wide receivers with 10 catches and 100 yards every single game, multiple guys. I know that's not realistic, but this is perhaps the most important stat in the game besides the final score and the turnover margin. You have to make your offense unpredictable. You have to force a defense as talented as Notre Dame's to address the entirety of the field. We know that you have a stacked tight end room. We know that you have the best tight end in the country, or at least the guy who was given the award for best tight end in the country. You know that Notre Dame was putting an extra safety over top of Tyler Warren on damn near every play. So that should have opened things up for your wide receiving core. And again, I'm happy it played out the way that it played out. I wanted Notre Dame to be in this position. The Fighting Irish, it's a cliche, but you know how we say this about teams in pro sports? The NBA is better when the Lakers and the Knicks are good. The NFL is better when the Dallas Cowboys are good. I don't know if that's true. College basketball is better when North Carolina and Duke and Kansas are good. College football is more fun and interesting when Notre Dame is good and when USC is good and when Texas is good. And the major brands, most of the major brands kind of checked their box and held up their end of the bargain this year. Texas, really good. Ohio State, really good. Michigan was good. Notre Dame, excellent. USC, they're lagging behind. So I'm happy that Notre Dame's there, but that stat blew me away. All of the other numbers in this game, and you can pull it apart and talk about in a close game who won, who lost, why they won, why they lost. That one to me is a glaring one that if I'm putting on the whiteboard for James Franklin and his quarterback room and his wide receiver room and his entire staff, I'm putting a big old 0 on some important whiteboards, and I'm saying, how did that happen? And whether it's a recruiting thing, it's a scheme thing, and I think it is a scheme thing for me, because to your point, James, they have talent in that room. Credit to Notre Dame, who made it difficult. But if Riley Leonard, who was just harassed by Abdul Carter and company this entire game, if he's able to complete more passes and more to his wide receiving core than you did, Drew Aller, you and your offensive coordinator and your wide receivers coach and all those wide receivers, you need to get in a room together and talk about why this happened. That is a bad, bad deal. Last thing before we take a break, Bill Riley's going to join us on the other side, talk about all things college football, what's going on with Utah hoops. Marcus Freeman, 39 years of age, has an opportunity to win a national championship. James Peterson, is that the youngest coach ever to win a national championship, if he can pull it off? I should say in Division I football.
I'm going to say yes.
Incorrect.
Who's younger? More than one?
Back in 1981, the youngest coach in college football history to win a national championship, Danny Ford, 33 years of age, when he led Clemson to a 12-0 season and beat Nebraska in the Orange Bowl to finish it out.
The guy Dabo Swinney made everyone forget.
Danny Ford.
Can
you imagine being 33 and coaching a team to an undefeated season and a national championship?
Kenny Dillingham is older than that right now.
Kenny Dillingham's 35.
He's 35, yeah. That's crazy.
And when you look at Kenny Dillingham, you're just like, who is that child on the sideline?
I can't imagine what Danny Ford looked like at 33. I'm about to turn 33, OC. That's great. I can't imagine coaching a
Well, what the hell are you doing, James?
I mean, I'm kind of coaching a program right now, right?
Unfortunately, not national championship caliber. Hate to break it to you. You need to recruit better talent.
We're building to that.
It did take him from 1978 to build all the way to that 81 season. So he was at Clemson from 78 to 89, and then at Arkansas from 93 to 97. Wild. All right, take a break. Come back with Bill Riley, the voice of the Utes. Talk some hoop, talk some football. Today's show and every day the show is brought to you by Les Schwab Tires. Les Schwab has the tires, wheels, and accessories for whatever it is you drive. Stop by your local Les Schwab today. Let the professionals get the job done right the first time. Sean O'Connell Show with Bill Riley next on ESPN 700. national championship contest with either Texas or Ohio State. Joining us to talk all things college football, some college hoops as well, the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley, brought to you by our friends at Advanced Windows. Bill, how are you?
Sean O'Connell, I am grand on this Friday. How are you?
Doing great. You know, because all of the teams that I care deeply about in football, the Utes and the San Francisco 49ers are no longer playing.
The Buffs.
The Colorado Buffs. I've just jumped back on board the Notre Dame bandwagon of my childhood when I was one of the only Irish Catholic kids in Sandy, Utah, growing up without cable and watching Notre Dame every Saturday. I'm back on the train, Bill. Are you?
Well, I picked them to win last night, and I was one of the few Irish Catholic kids who, upon my confirmation, rejected the notion of Notre Dame because it's crammed down your throat as an Irish Catholic child. I detested Notre Dame and everything about them. But then I visited Notre Dame for the first time, and then I called a game there, and I was like, well, I'm not a huge Notre Dame fan, but this place is pretty cool. And I'll be honest, Marcus Freeman's a really likable guy, and this group is pretty fun to watch. And that game last night was fantastic. So I wouldn't say I'm on the bandwagon, but this might be among the more enjoyable Notre Dame clubs, teams, programs of my lifetime because they seem like good dudes and they play really hard. And that was a fun football game last night. It really was. It
was a great game, back and forth, especially if you like some big defensive plays being made, which both teams were able to do that throughout the game. Looking at this Notre Dame season kind of big picture, I was trying to figure out what inference I should make about, what lesson there is to be learned about a team that is now right there for a national championship that earlier in the year lost one of the most embarrassing – it was one of the most embarrassing losses in Notre Dame history. Under this head coach, with this same roster, they lost to Northern Illinois. And that's not disrespect to Northern Illinois. It's just those are two teams and two programs that are on different planets right now. And that happened just a few months ago, Bill. And now here they are ready to, stir the echoes and restore Notre Dame to its former glory in the same seasons. What should we learn as college football fans from this?
Well, the one game doesn't make a season, I think. I mean, I was trying to I'm with you. I was trying to come up with that. It's hard to find it in college football, inexplicable losses followed by potential national – you see it in college basketball. Like I remember when I was a kid, I'm way old, but Virginia when they had Ralph Sampson and they were a powerhouse and they got beat by Chaminade of Hawaii in like an early season game, and you're like, what? Chaminade was like an NAIA. They only played because they were hosting the tournament, and then they came back around and they got to a final. But they didn't win a national championship, but they got there. It's hard to find it in football, but what it goes to show you is the culture and the coach and the message were still on point. That's a game that can make you point fingers in locker rooms, and especially in this day and age where culture is a rarity anymore in college football because so many new faces, even though it's an early season loss, it can make you second guess yourself a little bit. And clearly that didn't happen with Notre Dame. They stayed the course. They got better and better and better. They've navigated this playoff this year, 3 wins now. I think it's a great testament to their coaching staff and what Marcus Freeman's put together. They're really talented. I'm not a huge, to be fair, Riley Leonard fan. I think he's a good college quarterback. I'm not sure he's got a career on the next level as a good quarterback. I just think I don't know that he throws it well enough. But for college, you don't need that. You need guys that can make plays and be good leaders, and that's exactly what he is. And I think he proved that last night. He can use his legs to make some plays. Their defense was good. They ran it in the second half after not running it in the first half. I just thought it was a really good football game. And maybe I'm jumping ahead to something you're going to say. I don't understand this criticism of James Franklin now. He got to the Final Four. It wasn't like Penn State was markedly better in any way, shape, or form than Notre Dame. He didn't get beat by Indiana. He didn't get beat by Boise. He got beat by Notre Dame, who may win a national championship. So I mean, I can understand some of the criticism leading up to Franklin because over his career he hadn't won a bunch of big games, but he just got to the college football Final Four. So I think that should quiet it down just a little bit.
I think if there's a place to be critical of this game, because it was, hotly contested, and somebody's got to come out the loser, somebody's got to come out the winner. I'm not asking for anybody to be fired or anything like that. That's irrational. It is very, very strange to me that there was not a single completion to a wide receiver by Penn State in this game. That speaks of something that could end up being a bigger issue. Now, I feel comfortable in saying that because Utah has been a team that over-indexes on its run game and tight end talent. And, oftentimes we talk about the wide receivers maybe being a weak link. So maybe Penn State is just in the playoff version of Utah, and it's nothing bigger than that. But that is a wild stat in a semifinal Final Four game where you've done all these things right that you can't get the ball to a wide receiver to keep a defense honest even once.
Yeah, I wonder, because you and I aren't privy to it, was that the scheme or the design, or was that Drew Aller, who arguably had a really bad game last night? He was not real good, and he made some bad decisions. Now, was that him? Because sometimes, depending on how plays are drawn up, you have different options. Maybe he was more comfortable throwing, Tyler Warren's. He might be the second coming of Travis Kelce or Brock Bowers or whomever. He's really good, and the other tight end wasn't bad either, through the backs as well. But I don't know if that was scheme and design or if that was a quarterback having a bad night, not getting there with his reads.
Yeah, any of those things are a possibility. But nonetheless, Notre Dame moves on, and the winner will take on whoever emerges from tonight's contest between Texas and Ohio State. Right now, the odds in the conversation are leaning very heavily in Ohio State's favor. How do you see it?
Yeah, I understand that because Ohio State's played really well, and so I kind of get that part of it. They beat Tennessee, who was good this year, and then they knocked off a very good Oregon team as well. But I'm not sure that I understand why there's just been this huge shift now. Maybe Texas relies pretty heavily on big plays, and Quinn Ewers has been a little bit up and down, just a little bit. I kind of look at this as a really fun match. I think we're going to have points tonight. I just think Ohio State is, if you can protect, they give up big plays on the back end. Oregon didn't protect very well, and as a result, Dylan Gabriel got a lot of pressure. But if Texas and that offensive line can protect, Sean, Texas has big plays, big play wide receivers. So I think the edge probably goes to Ohio State. And I picked them, somebody asked me the other day who I liked. I kind of like Ohio State. But I could see Texas winning this if they're able to hit some big plays.
I think it's going to be a fun game. I'm with you. I think we get a nice little back and forth, and we'll watch how it plays out. Bill Riley, my guest, for a few more minutes. We'll get to some Utah hoops here in a second. I had Mark Harlan in studio yesterday, and he did an exclusive with the Deseret News, and we talked about some of the things that emerged in that article. And one of the things I asked him about was, in a down year wins-wise for Utah football, and a year where Utah's men's basketball team is having its struggles, he noted both in my conversation with him yesterday and in his in the article that fundraising and NIL and all that stuff at Utah is at an all-time high. And that to me is shocking at some level, and more impressive than anything, that the support is still there even when the results are not necessarily. And obviously you're up there on the Hill now in a more official capacity. What does that say about Utah's athletic future, and I guess about its fan base and support base, if you don't even have to win to reach unprecedented numbers?
Well, just so you know, I'm not privy to even though people think I'm not in on those meetings. Those are way above my pay grade. I've not seen what those donation numbers are. But if that is the truth, and I have no reason not to believe Mark, my boss, that's great news for Utah, because everybody talks about the settlement money that's coming in, but everybody's getting that, Sean. If you still want to compete at the high end, you still need great support from your boosters and your donors to help your programs, because that's now the norm. That's now not what you could do years ago, but you could do it now. So, everybody's getting that 20 to 22 million of settlement money annually, and we all know that, in that neighborhood of 15 to 16 million of it's probably going to go to bad football. at most big programs, and then you'll spread the rest of it around among basketball and your Olympic sports. So if you want to continue, if you're Utah, if you're BYU, Alabama, US, whomever it might be, you still need that great support from your donor base and from your, and from new, people that want to support the program. And so to hear that from Mark on your show yesterday and to see it in the D News as well, that's if you're Kyle Whittingham or you're Craig Smith or you're any of the coaches up here, but especially on the football side of it, I think that's great news. Now, I think you and I have talked about this before. The average fan has freaked out, has panicked, they lost their mind. The sky is falling. It was a 5-7 season. I get all that stuff. But I think the rational person looks at it and says, okay, one losing season in the last 11. Even in what was considered to be a down year the year before, they were 8-4. Now, certainly there are issues that have to be fixed and addressed and things like that. But this program was not far away from being a contender in the Big 12. In some ways it was, in some ways it wasn't. Average quarterback play would have had them there. I think that problem's been addressed both with starting quarterback and support behind it this offseason. So I think a lot of people that really support and back the program probably saw that. And obviously with Kyle returning, there's a lot of momentum there too, because this is the man that's built this program into what it is today. So that to me is great news.
Before I let you go, on the hoops front, your broadcast partner on these games, and you'll hear one here on ESPN 792.1 FM tomorrow against Oklahoma State. Sean Mooney said, this is the game. This is the first Big 12 win for Craig Smith's program. He said guarantee they're going to get this win. What have you seen from Oklahoma State? Is this the shot that Utah needs to get right in Big 12 play?
They certainly can win this game, Sean. And their opponent, Oklahoma State, is not to the level of the first three they've played. They're not quite on that same tier, certainly as Iowa State, who's a top 3 team in the country. Texas Tech, who's a very good team, borderline top 25, and obviously Baylor, who is a top 25 program. Now, Oklahoma State's good. They actually have a win in Big 12 play, something Utah does not right now. They beat Kansas State by 13 the other night. But of the games they've played, this is certainly the best chance for a win. It's a home game. I think the matchup is pretty good for Utah, too. But Utah's lost 4 in a row. Oklahoma State won their game the other night, so they probably feel a little bit better about themselves. It'll be a good matchup tomorrow. I'm not in the guarantee game like my partner is. I call Sean the eternal optimist, which I love. We have to have people like that in our lives, and I'm glad Sean is in mine. But they certainly can win tomorrow, but they're not going to be able to turn it over like they did against Iowa State. This team, Oklahoma State, a lot like Iowa State, probably the best at stealing and turning teams over in the Big 12. They average 9.5, almost 10 steals a game. And they also play at the fastest pace in the Big 12, which means they like to get it up the floor, which means if you turn it over, it's going to be a touchdown on the other end. So Utah, number one, they're just going to have to be better with the basketball tomorrow. If they are, and they're back in that 8, 9, 10 turnover a game range, they'll certainly have a great chance to win that game tomorrow.
Bill, you're the man. Always appreciate you giving us some time. Have a great call this weekend.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. And thanks to my friends at Advanced Window Products as well, Nate and Dave and Janitha and Jake and all those crew. They're awesome folks. We love them for what they do and the great work that they do, too. Locally made, locally operated, all of it right here. 36 years in business. Awesome folks. Advanced Window Products. Do you have that phone number, by the way?
801-850-9100. Take advantage of the big-time discounts they give to our ESPN 700 listeners. Tell them that OC and Bill Riley sent you over there. 801-850-9100 at Advanced Window Products. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Sean.
Great stuff, as always, from the voice of the Utes. Before I take a break and we get to the hot lunch, reminder, ESPN 792.1 FM have a cash kickoff contest going on right now. For your shot to win $1,000 to help cover the bills, text JOY, J-O-Y, to 508-777-1000. That's 508-777-1000. Text the word JOY to 508-777-1000. This is a nationwide contest. Hot lunch coming up next. We'll do some props and some betting discussion about tonight's college football playoff semifinal. This is for James Peterson, who's all the way decked out in his Ohio State gear today. And then coming up in 10 minutes, what a pleasure. Gordy Chiesa joins me in studio. We have him for an hour. That's coming on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Eight seven seven 353-0700. Anytime you want to weigh in, you can hit us on our Dish Pros text line on anything we're talking about. At Real OC Sports is how you get a hold of me on the tweet machine. The only poll I put up today was about that freakish stat that occurred in last night's semifinal game between Notre Dame and Penn State. 0 completions to a wide receiver by Penn State, and I asked who's to blame. Offensive coordinator, wide receivers not getting open, the quarterback, or the head coach, because everything falls on the head coach's head. For the hot lunch today, brought to you by Lemon Shark Poke, right here on 300 South, just east of our location in the Broadway studios. Lemon Shark has these unbelievable poke bowls with incredibly fresh fish. They get their fish from the same places that all the fancy restaurants do. Fly it in fresh every single day. Go tell them Mosi sent you. Grab yourself a poke bowl. I wanted to get your thoughts on some of these props in tonight's game, some of the bets in tonight's game. James Peterson, you comfortable with that for some
ready.
hot lunch?
Hit me with them.
Okay. Jeremiah Smith is the guy everyone's talking about right now.
Taking that bet.
Really? You're taking Jeremiah Smith over under one injury?
Oh, man.
You're hammering
Oh, no. Sorry, I'm a little too eager.
He's averaging 22.3 yards per catch in the playoff right now. He is a big play wide receiver. He's a young man, obviously. He is one of the guys that people are going to talk about, like we did with Leonard Fournette, like we've done with a couple of freakish talents, where you say, hey, are we doing the right thing for these guys, keeping them from going to the NFL draft? Because he would be in the NFL draft. He'd be highly, highly touted and highly thought of in an NFL draft, even as an 18-year-old freshman. In any case, over 99.5 yards for Jeremiah Smith. You taking that?
Texas's defense.
Texas
though,
has a great
joke.
defense. And Texas, he's not sneaking up on anyone at this point.
I'm still going to do it, though.
And
he'll get to triple digits, but I'm not sure not much more than that.
All right. Over under 1.5 touchdowns for Jeremiah Smith in this game.
I'm going to go over, but I think probably just 2.
I think probably just 2. Oh, so
I mean, not like I'm not going way over. In other words, I think just a little bit over.
Just a modest total for the young man.
Yeah, just 2.
All right, I guess. What about Travion Henderson? Now we're talking about balancing out your offensive output, right? Which is something that is easier said than done against what Texas we decided was a top 3 defense in college football, at least through the regular season. They were. Travion Henderson, over under 49.5 rushing yards.
I'm going to go under because the biggest strength of Texas's defense is that line, right? And they're going to show their muscle tonight. And I think this could be I'm afraid that this could be like Michigan when they went up against Michigan's defensive line when they just tried to run and they got nowhere. So I could see that happening tonight again with Texas.
All right, how about this one? Over under 7.5 snaps for Arch Manning.
Ooh.
Now we've seen them use him in like the quarterback sneak game, the short yardage game. He has come in any various times for a banged up Quinn Ewers. It's not like you can't play the kid. I mean, Notre Dame used an entire drive of their backup quarterback last night because they had to. It worked out fine for the Irish, as I mentioned. He hit all but one of the passes they asked him to throw, and he was not part of the offense all year. Now, this is a semifinal contest against Ohio State. A trip to the national championship is on the line, and in the last game, Texas did not use Arch Manning at all. So, are we going to see him because of some of the differences with this Ohio State matchup? We don't know what his practices have been like. We're not allowed to see any of that. How much does Arch Manning play? Over under 7.5 snaps.
I'll say under, but man, this sports book knows what they're doing with it's only 7. Like he could get 7 snaps.
That's
right?
the thing is it's like okay, well, so you take
or 7.5. I guess it's only 8 if you take the over.
You take a red zone trip with him, right? And like that's maybe 2 snaps. Well, okay, you got one of those in the first quarter. What about in the second quarter? Now you're halfway there.
Yeah.
And now, like with the game on the line later, are you going to be in the red zone that often? And it's not just red zone; it's short yardage situations. You got to believe you're going to be in several of those because Texas, they don't give up an inch without fighting for it. So
yeah, I'm still going to go under, but that's a good line that could hook you there. Yeah,
it's going to be a fascinating game. The College Football Playoff Committee, I'm not a believer, at least on the same level as some people are. Like I'm not to the Eric Weddle level conspiracy theory, the tinfoil hats, where it's just like referees are getting phone calls to like, that's not targeting. Don't let it be targeting, right? I'm not quite at that level.
Wait, it would be against Texas? Yeah,
but
it's not targeting.
Look, if the College Football Playoff Committee could have scripted a national championship matchup and you had to tell them, like, look, there's not going to be an SEC, like a traditional, there's going to be no Bama, no Georgia, no whatever. Who do you want? They would have said, give me Notre Dame against somebody. Okay, Notre Dame against who? I don't know. Notre Dame against, like, Ohio State or Texas.
Yeah.
It could not go any better for the broadcast partners. This is exactly what you wanted to see if you're one of those, like, power players, puppet masters in college football.
And you could say it the other way around, too. You could say, give me Ohio – they might say, give me Ohio State or somebody, too.
Right.
And it's like –
well, Ohio State or who? Well, I don't know. Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Texas.
And that could
USC.
end up being Ohio State, Notre Dame. Like, that's nuts. That
even Texas, Notre Dame.
Yeah, Texas, Notre Dame would be incredible for the TV TV execs, too.
The blue blood set here is in a win-win scenario.
Yes.
There is nobody on the broadcast front. There's nobody like the crew calling the national championship game.
It's Fowler and Herbstreit.
It's the same one calling the game tonight, right? It's Holly Rowe and Fowler and Herbstreit, and they do two sideline reporters now. So I think it's Laura Rutledge is on the other side.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay.
I think she's been with that crew.
There it is right there. Okay, so she's been with that crew. So, like, this crew is like, we get Notre Dame versus one of these two teams. I've already been doing, like, my research is done. I've been watching these games all year. This is not like some upstart, crap, I actually have to pay attention to Indiana now. Oh, dang it. Arizona State's going to be here. This is like,
yeah.
Anyway.
This will not be an Ohio State blowout. And that's what makes me nervous. One of the things that makes me nervous about this game, I didn't think the Oregon game would be Ohio State blowout either, but I feel even more that way just because of how much Texas leans on their defense and that run game. Ohio State's got a good defense too, so they're going to neutralize what Texas does on offense, but I think it'll be one of those defensive struggles. And I've told you off air, one of the things that makes me nervous about Will Howard is him in a close game in the clutch. So I think he's going to have to prove something tonight.
Here's an interesting stat on my television right now as they're getting ready to cover the Cotton Bowl Classic. In 2021, Ohio State was giving up 374 yards per game. They dropped that by 100 yards a game. That's how much the defense has improved.
That was Jim Knowles. Jim Knowles came in after 21, I think. Or maybe 21 might have been his first year. But anyway, that was right around when Jim Knowles came in as defensive coordinator.
In the three ensuing seasons, they've given up 276 yards a game, so a 98-yard improvement per game. And that's why they're here, or one of the many reasons why they are here. All right, for the hat lover in your life, maybe you want to get James Peterson something. woodandgrail.com. That's wood, the letter N, grail.com. They've got these incredible hats, local company with cutting-edge hat design and elite. I'm talking about elite, high-quality materials. The corduroy, the suede, the trucker hat, the stitching. So much attention to detail on these hats. I like the Flip the Script series. I like the suede, as we've talked about many times. And even if you don't want to have to make the selection yourself, you can get whoever that person in your life is that loves hats. You can get them a gift card. Go to woodandgrail.com. Sign up for all the newsletters. Sign up for the exclusive access to the drops on the latest products, the news on which licensing agreement they have signed. You're already covered on Utah, on BYU, on Utah State, even on UVU. Any Big 12 fan base can now start grabbing stuff from Wood and Grail, and they continue to expand. So sign up for the newsletter. Sign up for all the drops. Get the exclusive discounts. And as always, tell them OC sent you at woodandgrail.com. That's wood, the letter N, grail.com. All right, hour number 2 is all Gordy Chiesa. We're talking hoops and sports and everything. He actually just told me a great Notre Dame story during the last break. I'm going to make him tell it again on air because Gordy is just, he's a font of knowledge for all of us. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
How about that move? Inside out. Mark it in 3. Got it. Now the Jazz finding a little groove.
Yes, sir. We talked about the energy. Call a medic.
Big T feeling it. That was a little Colin Sexton niftiness that led to a Lowry Market in 3. Ultimately, a 97-92 loss to the Heat at the Delta Center. That sound courtesy of Smith Entertainment Group Media. Bowler and Big T on the call. That's 2 straight losses for the Jazz, both of those at home. Of course, people were sweating it out when they were winning 2 games in a row. So how are you supposed to react? Right now, 5th best lottery odds in the league with plenty of basketball left to play. Gordy Chiesa joins us for the entire noon hour, the first time in 2025, the first time this basketball season we've had you for the hour and in studio. First of all, welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Sean. Thank you.
Before we get into this hoops discussion, you and I were talking during the break about being, the kids that either liked Notre Dame because that's what was on TV, or you were forced to like Notre Dame because of the school you went to, and that was your life living back east at Catholic school.
That's exactly right. I mentioned to Sean off the air that Notre Dame, whether you love them or hate them, and there's no in between, is that back east because there's so many Catholics in the big cities, meaning New York City, New Jersey's suburbs, Long Island, Boston, Philly, D.C., Pittsburgh, should I continue, Buffalo, New York, etc., is that I went to a Catholic school, both grammar school and high school. So when I would say in grammar school, say you picture you're 14 years old, at 2:40 in the afternoon, that's when the bell rang, which all the boys were ecstatic to get out of school, to say the least, if you get my drift, Sean. And so on a Friday afternoon, you would say the last prayer by the Irish nuns that spoke with that brogue that you always see in the movies, 50 years later. And it's all true. Is that the last prayer of the day was, bless your mother and father and the weekend activities, etc. And let's say a loud prayer for Notre Dame football as they beat Army tomorrow or beat USC tomorrow. That was the last prayer of the day. We pray for Notre Dame football.
It's so wild, and it's like, look, I think there's some level of that cultural, religious, sport indoctrination here in this state with, especially with BYU, and like a lot of it is tongue in cheek, but that's why I like the perspective, because depending on where you grow up, and even if you do grow up out here, or we just talked with Bill Riley, who grew up in the Midwest, grew up in Kansas, and you didn't have cable back in the day, Notre Dame was going to be on every single weekend. And if you're Catholic, if you're an Irish Catholic, like my family is not even super into football, not even into sports. Still, I was raised to like Notre Dame football. And I do, and I did. So it wasn't like forced upon me, but it's funny because it's the largest Christian religion on the planet. And here in the United States, part of being a young Catholic is you're watching Notre Dame football. And whether you embrace it or reject it, it ends up being up to you. But now they're in a national championship game.
Add to that, they were the first team ever as far as school, think about branding, where they had a national radio contract. So Mutual Sports, which is his affiliation, ABC, they used to broadcast Notre Dame football games on radio nationally. So, Sean, you could be in California and on the beach, and if you're a Notre Dame fan, you're listening to Notre Dame 1969, 1974, whoever they're playing.
For people who haven't had the pleasure of going, there is something magical about Notre Dame football and the stadium and Touchdown Jesus
absolutely.
And the campus. Like, it really is, you feel like you're in a movie. The fan base takes hosting visiting fan bases very seriously. The bookstore, everything. The whole thing is awesome, right? It really is great. But South Bend, Indiana, beyond that?
Tough sell.
It's like, how did this happen? It's so wild. I mean, Logan is charming and beautiful and is a nice little college town. You got the mountains. Like, you don't have that in South Bend. South Bend is like you're driving through farmland, and then you come across this town that you're like, why is this town even here? And then the university is sort of the answer to that question. I don't know how it happened, but it's a tough sell beyond anything besides Notre Dame.
Well, it happened with the French priest back a long, long time ago. And just geographically, South Bend's about 2 hours to Chicago. roughly 2 hours. So that's the nearest major city. So it's magical. It's fun. I'm glad they're playing for the championship. And you mentioned before you guys are talking in earnest about tonight's game between the Buckeyes and Texas. This is the ultimate branding. And that gets back to the NBA, where it's not really the team branding in the NBA, it's the player branding themselves.
Yeah.
So it's interesting showing between college sports, especially football, and basketball would be, let's say, the Blue Bloods, Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, etc. Even UConn now. But in college sports, it's a university.
All right, let's get to some hoop. We'll start with the Utah Jazz. You brought up an interesting factoid as we were off the air again, that it was a home loss last night. That's back-to-back home losses for the Utah Jazz, and they haven't won a game at home since before Thanksgiving, Gordy.
That's correct, yeah. Since November 23rd, the Jazz beat the Knickerbockers, and before that was on November 14th versus the Mavericks. So the Jazz unfortunately, have not won a home game literally in, my math right, in almost 6 weeks at home. And so that shows you how loyal the fan base is. So the learning point about that is that the Jazz fans are showing up and cheering for their team. However, the players have to respond and try to get Sean, I call it an ugly win. Win ugly at home. Win by 3, 4-1. And that game against the Hawks tonight was a devastating loss because Trae Young didn't cooperate. But you've got to try to get some wins quickly. In yesteryear, one time in Jazz basketball, the first year of the Delta Center, the Jazz finished 38-3 at home, and in the second year, the Jazz finished the 92-93 season 37-4. When Darren Williams played for the Jazz and Carlos Boozer, Mehmet Okur, and that crew, they had a dominant home court. So the way back to being respectable, besides via draft and free agency, is that you've got to protect your own crib.
I'm not going to lie, Gordy. I thought that what we saw from the Miami Heat in Miami just a few games ago, and now the return trip here to Utah, I thought that last night's game against the Heat, that would be another win for the Jazz, because there's a level of dysfunction right now with the Miami Heat and the whole Jimmy Butler situation that I feel allows you, even if you got important players out, even if your team's a little bit strapped for talent at the moment, dysfunction weighs heavier than anything, and the Heat found a way to get the win on the road. Should I be surprised by that, given what the environment is with Miami right now?
No, not at all. In a sense that they call it the Heat culture. It sounds so corny, but the teams that usually are highly successful, maybe not be champions all the time, but let's not forget, though, Heat have been 3-time world champions. And so in that building in South Beach, there's a pride factor there. And Jimmy Butler, Sean's alluding to, is their star player that's been malcontent. He wants to be traded. Pat Riley, who's the judge and the jury who runs Miami Heat very successfully for the last 30 years, is saying no, that we do trade you, be on our terms. So let's see how it all plays out. So the Heat, though, they won on this road trip. They won a golden the other night at Golden State, which is a tough get. And last night's game with the Jazz, some people say, Sean, my good man, oh, that game was ugly. I say, as a former coach, but also an observer of basketball, that the defense was really good, and that's why it was the wobbly shooting of both teams. So the Jazz shot last night from the field 39.8 and three-point range, 30.6. And then the Heat shot only 31.1, and from three-point range, only 28%. I call that hounding and pounding defense, where Jaime Jaquez refused to let Larry Markkinen, who's really a good player, be comfortable on his shot. So Markkinen goes 8 for 24, and the reason why, Sean, was that Jaquez stayed on the body when they were in man-to-man defense, stayed on his body and fought over those screens, and then when Markkinen took jump shots, that there was a contesting hand. Last point is this. The Heat played the most zone defense in the NBA, the most zone. Old school, 2-3, high school zone, the Heat play. And so what they did a good job, the Heat, was we call it pointing the ball and pointing the dribbler. So you know the expression, Sean, they're playing a matchup zone. Here's a layman's term. A matchup zone means that one player points the ball and says, I got ball, and that's all I have. The other play on perimeter, usually speaking, says he points the shooter, which is marketing. So what the Heat did is that they slowed down Sexton and marketing when they played zone by pointing the dribbler, meaning Sexton, and he pointed the shooter, meaning what? Larry marketing, which means that everyone, if there's no one in the area, everyone are just over one position. In other words, sometimes, Sean, you've been in sports where the guy, he or she's guarding helium. They're guarding nobody because there's nobody. Yes, you're laughing, see, because you know it's the truth, Sean. I call it guarding helium. So when you point in a game, the zone, if there's no one in your area, you adjust one space over because now the court's tilted defensively. And that's what the Heat did. So part of that, non-shooting by the Jazz and, quote, that ugly game, the Heat play an effective zone defense. So, Sean, I'm going to point you right now. I'm pointing you, Sean. I'm pointing James Peterson right now. I'm pointing you guys. I got you.
James is always on helium. All right. That guy, no defensive hustle at all. He's an offensive guy only.
Guarding helium.
Yeah. He's a James Harden type player.
And Sean, most big guys, I say this so sadly. So Sean,
it's a James thing. I'm sorry.
So Sean, most big guys, they guard helium in a game, especially on pick and roll defense. The guy guarding the dribbler is trying to go over or under. He's fighting for his temporary life, and the big guy is guarding helium in the coverage.
So, okay, Gordy, these guys, even we've talked about this on the show, even the lowest paid NBA guy in the league right now, that's a couple $1 million a year. Most of these big guys are well above that. How, at the highest level of basketball, with such elite coaching, with great minds like yours helping them from not just in the NBA, but from the time they were 13, 14 years old, how is that still happening?
Amnesia. They're forgetting
selective amnesia,
yes,
right?
Yes, right. Selective amnesia. Absolutely. So everyone, you need bigs, but your bigs in the game, especially playoff games, Sean. So in bigs, your bigs have to be engaged. And when I say engaged, I mean offensively, run the floor. Defensively, be in coverage. Whatever the coverage is, you're up, we call it up to touch. Touch the screener, touch the cutter, which we call tag. And most big guys, for all the wrong reasons, they guard their natural habitat, which is what? In the lane. I call that jungle defense, right? Your natural habitat. And so when you wanted the winning bigs, and see, last night, Bam Adebayo couldn't make a shot, Sean, in the first half. But in coverage, though, he was up in that coverage and did a good job. So Bam showed his value. Anthony Davis of the Lakers, a lot of times, he's such a scoring talent, but when he's struggling to score, he does a good job, though, in coverage, whether it's in the lane. What you want to do in any sport, Sean, whether it's the NFL or or the NBA, you want to impact the ball. If you're on defense, your job is to impact the ball. How do you do that? By being in the coverage as far as actively.
I want to rewind just a little bit because you made the point about Jaime Jaquez contesting the shot and being in the grill of somebody like Lauri Markkanen. And Jaime Jaquez gives up 5-6 inches to Lauri Markkanen. Now, we've seen this through the years in basketball. Oftentimes, the elite defenders in NBA basketball, some of the guys that the Jazz have had to shut down opposing whoever, they're guys in that 6'6" range, right? The 6'5" to 6'8" type player. Maybe it's a versatility thing, but a lot of times when you're talking about not traditional rim protectors, but shut down, especially perimeter defenders, they're guys the size of Jaime Jaquez, and somehow they're able to cause problems for dudes much bigger than them. How? Because
first thing is that they have superior footwork. So in Jazz basketball, besides Jaquez, I'm talking about a second, Andre Karolinko, his footwork is tremendous. Raja Bell, footwork tremendous. Yesteryear, Brian Russell, tremendous footwork. So they combine both footwork with physicality. And Sean, just like in the NFL, you're a D-back or a safety. Technique is everything. Your hand placement is everything. You could be aggressive in sport. Oh, by the way, that's a foul. You bow the guy in the head with an elbow, that's a foul. Or you trip the guy, whether it's intentional or not, it's a foul. So the way Jaquez played Lauri Markkanen last night was that he had superior footwork. He got there early. There was an element of readiness and alertness. And more importantly, instead of using your hands, he used his chest. That's what we call put your numbers on the player you're guarding, not your hands. When you put your hands on somebody, it's a foul. Your numbers, it's not. So the more times you can go, we call it number on number, it's advantageous to the defense. Now, Sean, like anything else, most people feel uncomfortable when someone puts their body on them. That's what I call, Sean, subway defense. So when you're in a subway in New York City and someone's around you, you feel uncomfortable that someone's around you or somewhat on your chest. But the better NBA players play subway defense.
Interesting. So the footwork for the smaller guys is really the key.
The key.
And then, I mean, we've talked about great shot blockers. Obviously, there's certain traits that can't be coached and can't be taught with that length and that height. But the anticipation and even the accuracy of getting your hand in the right spot with all the moves that these scorers and especially drivers are now trying to make at the hoop, it's really impressive that guys can make that happen.
What you want to do is, as far as a shot blocker, so say Walker Kessler, let's put it in the present tense. You want to be the second jumper so that when someone penetrates, you have to have discipline. So here you are, you're ready to coil your body up to block a shot. And when we say block, we always talk about deflect a shot. When you smash the ball out of bounds, oh, by the way, it's the other team's ball still yet. But when you deflect a shot, it ignites your fast break. So Walker Kessler, in his development, he has way too many smashing blocks versus what? Deflection blocks. And that's something you have to learn how to do.
Wow.
And yeah, so just again, these are all little fine things that separate you being a tremendous. Okay, so like Wembanyama has a lot of deflection blocks versus smashing out of bounds because he deflects the ball up in the air to start the fast break. So timing, elevation, and just trying to tip the ball versus smash. And I didn't say smash mouth, that group back in 2000. I'm talking about just smashing. Don't smash the ball.
By the way, Walker Kessler, does he have a nickname yet? Can we call him Mr. America, or do we have to wait until he gets married to his girlfriend, who is now Miss America? Are we allowed to call Walker Mr. America as his Jazz nickname?
He claims the sheriff right now.
The sheriff?
I'm partial to Blocker Kessler.
Okay.
As you'd probably not very surprised. But yeah, Mr. America could be a third one.
Why not derive his nickname from his better half? If I guess it's not official. They're not married yet, so maybe we can't use it. But
Sean, Mr. America would say to me, someone's like a bodybuilder, like a weightlifter, like someone like you.
That's right. Yes,
someone like you.
That's right, Gordy. I have that
someone
physique.
like you.
All right. We'll workshop the Walker Kessler Mr. America idea a little bit more.
Everyone watching on YouTube can see that you got that Mr. America.
That I've got
physique.
that physique right now, especially after the holidays. And after that cruise I went on, I definitely did not put on any unworthy pounds during that time. Gordy Chiesa is here in studio with us. We're going to keep him around for the rest of the hour. There was an unbelievable regular season game in NBA basketball the other night. We have not had a chance to talk about that. So we're going to get to that Oklahoma City versus Cleveland regular season matchup, what that means, what winning a matchup like that in the regular season means, with so much basketball left to play. Gordy Chiesa gives us his insights continually for the next half hour plus on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show with Gordy Chiesa joining me in studio for this entire second hour of the show on a Friday. Talking NBA basketball, and we had a regular season treat just the other night. Cleveland versus Oklahoma City, the two top teams in their respective conferences in the NBA, going at it in a regular season contest with the most important players on both franchises healthy and available. And the game, I think, lived up to a lot of people's expectation. The level of competition was hot. Perhaps a finals preview. We'll see how things play out. Gordy, what were your thoughts on that matchup and the way it played out?
It played out unbelievable. It's in the sense where both teams played incredible as far as their defensive intensity. They tried to move the ball, and the stars were out aligned where they showcased their talent, and the Cavaliers won a hard-fought game the last 2 minutes where they made more plays than the Thunder. Now, the Cavs right now, their record is 33-4. The Thunder's record is 30-6. The Cavs are 20-1 at home, which shows you how dominant they were. Sean, the last time the Cavs lost a home game was against the Atlanta Hawks on November 27th, almost 6 weeks ago. So again, mentioned earlier about in Jazz basketball, unfortunately they're losing at home. The flip side of it is the Cavaliers, where they're winning in Cleveland. And how do you do that? Is less turnovers. So in the game against the Thunder lead the NBA in forced turnovers, and they had a hard time turning the ball over against the Cavaliers as far as speeding them up. Donovan Mitchell played great. He got Mobley involved throughout the whole game, and Evan Mobley, the third pick of the draft back in 2021 from Southern Cal, he was almost like his coming out party nationally. And at the two big guys, it's interesting, as everyone goes small in the NBA, the Cavs, the way they're structured, they have two big guys. That they go big on big. So Mobley, and as far as being, I'll call him a running four-man, and Jarrett Allen, who's an interior force, they play in lockstep with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland and everyone else as far as their crew.
Are they able to do that because of the athletic traits of those two bigs? Because they're lean, they both run well. They can. Is that why Cleveland can get away with having a lineup with two bigs where other teams have to go smaller and more athletic?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, and add to that, Sean. So when they play, they switch defense 1 through 5. So Mobley and Jarrett Allen have enough ability to move their feet defensively and rim protect in the lane, but also when they play 1 through 5, as far as switch defense on that exchange, they're able to ball contain. And that's why they're very, very good. And what's so interesting about the Cavaliers, they're the best shooting team in the NBA. So against the Thunder's really elite defense, they're able to shoot a high percentage. They're shooting right now for the season, the Cavaliers, 50.5. So, Sean, they make over half their shots in an NBA game.
Leading up to that game, I remember distinctly being like, "Oh yeah, it's a great matchup of teams that are very hot." I'm going to do something that is near impossible. I'm going to try to stump Gordy Chiesa with an NBA question right now. Okay, are you comfortable with me trying to stump you, Gordy?
That's easy to stump me.
Okay,
easy.
The last time two teams riding double-digit win streaks matched up against one another in the regular season. Do you know when that was? Both teams, 10 wins or more going in a row, going into the matchup in the regular season. Do you know when the last time that happened was?
I think it was the Milwaukee Bucks.
No.
No. Okay, help me. I don't know.
1995
okay.
was the last time.
95?
Now, I remember thinking, like, oh, yeah, we get this every year. We're like the best team in the East and the best team in the West, just traditionally, coincidentally, match up in a regular season. I read this, and I was shocked by it. It's only happened 3 times in NBA history where two teams riding 10-plus digit win streaks squared off against one another. So two teams that are both not only good, not only top of their respective conferences, but are both red hot, squaring off against one another. And the last time it happened, I'm so pleased, by the way, 1995, the two teams, it was not an East versus West, but it was two teams that were both on 10.
Was it like fall, winter 95, or spring?
I can't tell you if it was
you don't have
winter
the
or
date.
spring.
Okay.
but it was the Seattle Supersonics and the Utah Jazz.
Okay.
In 1995, that was the last time it happened.
So I should know that I was involved, to say the least. And in '95, the world champion was, by the way, was Houston Rockets. Won the championship, 94, 95. So that was.
Yeah, I remember that because that was the year that I thought that the Knicks were going to finally have their breakthrough. There was no Michael Jordan to deal with.
Right.
And unfortunately, Houston.
Yeah. The reason I asked about that, because I was about to guess Magic Bulls 95-96 season.
Okay.
But that's awesome. Jazz Sonics.
So the first time in 30 years, the NBA has seen a regular season matchup like that. Oklahoma City, Cleveland, and of course Cleveland emerges, and a lot of former Jazz connections there. Donovan Mitchell, perhaps on his way to a first career championship with the Cleveland Cavaliers. They look really good right now.
Also, George Niang. Let's not forget, George Niang is this guy that is a
everyone loved him.
Absolutely. They call him the minivan because he drove. I love when these guys drive these unbelievable Lamborghinis, all these unbelievable cars, and then George Niang drives a minivan. Now you got to love that, Sean. You got to love a guy that his inner self is driving a minivan. And also, oh, by the way, how dare you not guard me on perimeter with that knockdown jump shot from the corner? And let's not forget, Sam Merrill from a local guy right here, Utah State, is a huge factor also for their success as far as coming off the bench and being a shooting specialist. I like the Cavaliers, their coach, Kenny Atkinson. So this is the power of coaching. This is first year. He used to coach the Brooklyn Nets, did a good job there in a very, very hard-working environment. He goes to the Golden State Warriors, who he's around an elite a bunch of guys. He helps them win the 2022 championship, the Warriors, and now he's with the Cavaliers, and they needed a change as far as the voice, and he's the right guy as far as talking.
Gordy Chiesa sticking with us here in the second hour of our Friday show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Now is your chance to see a Runnin' Utes home game. Text the word Utes to 33986. Win a pair of tickets. You want to go see the Runnin' Utes at home. Utes to 33986 to win a pair of tickets. Right now, the NBA is like many leagues. The NFL had to move a playoff game to Arizona because of what's going on with the LA fires. And obviously, sports are so minor and they don't mean anything when you're talking about people losing everything and homes, and there's been loss of life, which is incredibly tragic. And it's so insane to see. I've actually had a hard time figuring out how much we're supposed to talk about it on a sports talk radio show in Utah when, people we know are affected, at least indirectly. But, the NBA especially, we saw Kawhi Leonard step away from the team for a little while to go make sure that everyone was okay. You got two teams in L.A. There's a lot of guys who are from that part of the world that have connections there. And, you've got this insane apocalyptic sort of look to a city, one of the iconic basketball cities also in the United States of America. It has started to affect scheduling. It started to affect player availability. Trying to play a game, especially during a regular season, when that is happening in the background of potentially your personal life like it was with Kawhi. Gordy, how does the league, how do the coaches, how do the players handle this huge, huge issue that's going on in L.A. right now?
But the right way, with respect, where they postponed the Laker-Charlotte Hornets game. That's the first thing. Also, J.J. Redick is the coach of the Lakers. He's involved as far as what his house, I believe, unfortunately, also, I believe, was part of that part of the burning down. And Steve Kerr, the coach of the Golden State Warriors, his family house also is involved in that area. Sean, we went through this in jazz basketball back in 1992 with the Rodney King situation. With in L.A.
Riots,
with the riots, with the 1992 riots, where we're going to play the Lakers. We're going to play the Clippers in the playoffs in 1992, and we're delayed 5 days, where we stayed in the hotel in Marina del Rey. I only went to practice at Morningside High School in Englewood. They delayed it for 5 days because of the the unfortunate situation as far as rioting in the area. And so I saw it firsthand. That was the only time in basketball where a playoff game was delayed. Also, the Lakers are going to play the Portland Trailblazers as far as in the playoffs. So Jazz versus the Clippers, Portland versus the Lakers. The Lakers moved their playoff game to Las Vegas. And the Clippers moved their playoff game. At that time, the Clippers played at the Sports Arena, which we know is right in downtown L.A. We played in Anaheim at the Convention Center.
Okay.
So I saw it firsthand as far as how the NBA, how they take this absolutely unquestionably very, very seriously, and does what's best from a human nature point of view versus what's best only the business side.
Yeah, Tyronn Lue, he came out in support. Kawhi had stepped away because his family was, evacuating or being asked to evacuate, and I can't imagine being a player on the road. You got to go to work. You get a phone call from someone in your family, and he said, "I'm going to go make sure my kids are okay." And of course, the team accommodated that willingly. And that is good to see. And obviously, we hope that everything, the fires can die out and that everyone is okay. And it seems like, given the scale of the disaster, the loss of life has been relatively minimal, at least what is reported for now. So that's a fortunate situation. When you start to get into, we got to postpone games, we got to cancel games. A lot of these athletes and a lot of these you're creatures of habit. You get into these routines. When something throws off the routine, how much can it affect you?
Very much. And so what you want to do is it affects you. So you almost have a catharsis where as a group you come together and you talk about each person's situation, how it's slightly different, and your support system. So, Sean, what happens is that your teammates and your floor mates become right now really, truly brotherhood and or sisterhood, and that each person rallies around each other to support what's best for that person, but also for the group. And it's an interesting dynamic, and everyone goes through this at some point in your career. And Sean, also, this was as far as the fires, etc., but also could be a major injury to an athlete, where suddenly a star player right in front of you gets this devastating injury, and that's when your teammates come together and really. You've seen this, Sean, a lot of times where an opposing team helps that player up off the floor, and they really say a prayer on the court that that person hopefully will eventually be okay.
Yeah, you never like to see when the big-time injuries happen. It affects everyone. Players on the team, players on the opposing team, and you can you get a read on people's level of ability to, like, either they saw too much of it or whatever. Like, you see guys get teary-eyed. You see guys get a little nauseous, depending on how nasty the injury is. The reaction, the range of reactions you get, and I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but now we just have constant access, and there's a camera on everybody. It's really wild to see that sometimes.
And that's social media. That's the digital part of it. That's the platform, and so it comes instant as far as so worldwide, and people react to it, and they should, because these people are highly talented athletes, but also more importantly, the human beings, and that's when you see the goodness of people come to the forefront. Usually, when there's adversity, and I say this very, very sadly, the goodness of people comes front and center, and you see that people do rally around each other and they band together.
All right, we're going to take another quick break here. Gordy's sticking with us till the end of the hour. He's going to have a list for us. I have a couple more questions about an upcoming trade deadline, and especially this Jimmy Butler situation. Is he going to rejoin the Heat after his 7-game suspension? We're going to get to all of that on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. One last segment with Gordy Chiesa in studio here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Glad to have him talking some hoop.
And Earth, Wind, and Fire.
And some Earth, Wind, and Fire.
So, say this song, every time I went to a wedding, this song has been on. And guys like me got on the dance floor and embarrassed themselves because of this song.
I bet you could cut a rug, Gordy. I bet you have some nice moves.
My go-to move is called the elbow.
Okay.
It's called the elbow. And also I have a move called the lawnmower.
All right.
Yeah.
Is that what I think it is? Looks like you're starting up a lawnmower? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, you can see those on our YouTube channel, by the way. Gordy's here on camera.
Those are my go-to
Broadway
moves,
studio.
in case you're wondering, America. God bless you.
Earth, Wind, and Fire. Classic, wonderful, incredible. All right. The trade deadline, there are teams that are going to have to make moves, teams that do not have to make moves. It seems like the Utah Jazz are going to be willing trade partners, as we've talked about kind of all season long. There's certain players on this team, veteran talents especially, that are going to want to be somewhere else. The Jazz are going to want to offload them to somewhere else, and presumably that increases your chances for a high lottery pick. Who's calling the Jazz right now, feeling out, where they can get a Jordan Clarkson or a John Collins or whatever?
It will be a team that has a major injury between now and February 6th. And, Sean, you're alluding to at the contracts. It's such a factor. It gets complicated. So Jordan Clarkson, who's a good player, who's hurt right now with plantar fasciitis, which means what? You have a sore foot. And so he would be a classic example where his contract is relatively modest. So his contract this year is $14.1 million, and next year it's $14.2. So it's a finish line. John Collins, who's played for the Jazz tremendous the whole year, also could be a guy that people like. He makes this year 26.5, next year 26.5 million. It's a player option, and then teams would like also Colin Sexton, who's a very good player, who's played tremendous. There's a finality in his contract this year and next year. He makes next year 19.1. So it would be a team that needs scoring either as a fifth starter or off the bench. So the question is, who might be those teams? It could be teams like in the East, Sean, that would be like someone like the Magic, the Knicks, someone like that, the Bucks, that need scoring that would help their team as far as going deeper in the playoffs. In the West, it would be someone like, again, had to match up the salaries, someone like possibly the Warriors, possibly the Kings, as far as scoring ability, as far as bench guys.
Okay.
Someone like those teams. But it gets complicated because also the Jazz have a very good point of view where they could be a trading partner on a 3-team trade that which would help them as far as future assets.
When we get to those 3-team trades and who gets what and who goes where, gives me a headache.
Yeah, it's confusing because, again, it's, so many fans say, let's trade so-and-so for so-and-so. Your intentions are well-intended. However, it has to match up, and usually you need a third person. Generally speaking, is that in the trading deadline, where this year is Thursday, February 6th, only half the teams in the NBA are serious about trading and upgrading their rosters. The other half are not serious. However, the week before the NBA draft, that's when everyone is serious. So often when you make trades, it's before the free agency starts on July 1st. It's the Monday before the NBA draft, which is usually speaking late June.
I think I've asked you about this every time we've gotten together for the last couple of weeks because this Jimmy Butler situation is fascinating. He is one of the best players in the NBA. He's got a big contract. He's unhappy. The team suspended him for 7 games. I think that ends up costing him a little over $3 million if I looked at that right.
I think it's $4.5 million.
$4.5 million,
yes.
Which, I mean, I looked up his career earnings. He's made over $300 million as an NBA player, so $4.5 million for him is not the same as it is for an average human being. But $4.5 million is never insignificant. when you're a guy who's is that just lost money forever, Gordy? Is there ever a way as a player to kind of recoup that? Do they even care, these big-time $50 million a year players, when you're talking about that level of, for them, chump change?
No, really. They really, in that situation, they would not care. I say it very sadly because of the economics of it and their alleged status in the NBA. And that's the key word here. Alleged status in the NBA. Jimmy Butler is a 14-year veteran. This is his 14th season in the NBA. Just historically, he was the 30th pick of the draft back in 2011 out of Marquette. Now, he's a star player, which is an all-around game. So now it gets interesting where his contract, he wanted to be traded. First, he wanted an extension last summer, and the Heat did not give him the extension. So that became a very, very a sticky talking point. Then this year, he's been in and out of lamp as far as hurt. But when he has played, he's been tremendous with the Heat. Now, his contract this year is $48.7 million. Next year, it's a player option at $52.4 million. So, Sean, the team that possibly tries to trade for him, you're talking about next year, and he could opt out of it. So whoever trades for him, they have to know that they can re-sign him for either 3 or 4 years. So now, Sean, it gets interesting where he'll be 35 years old. He's 35 years old right now. He's 35 years old. Pardon me. He'll be 36 on September 4th. I have my math correct. So the question is, are you trading with somebody going to be 36 years old and then you think you're going to re-sign him? So that's when it gets what? It's very unlikely. It's unlikely.
Wow. But and look, he's going to have to just reconcile with the Heat because he's coming back to play.
That's very much so. My sources told me this at the last night's game where he's back in South Beach right now and he's working out on his own. And Pat Riley has said just recently, 2 days ago, where some of his comments last summer where he told Jimmy Butler basically, stop talking, that you didn't play in the playoffs that affected us last year, and that he regrets some of his comments. So now let's just see if they can reconcile and try to live through this and go and make the playoffs and then suddenly get an upset. Because the Heat are a proud bunch of people as far as organization-wise. So we'll see if they can do it right now. Can Jimmy Butler also, can he take a step back and be less emotional, and can they do it right now? Which no one knows the answer. We shall see.
All right, Gordy, before we cut you loose, what is your list today?
My list today, Sean, is based on Trae Young's performance against the Jazz on Tuesday night here in Salt Lake City. The most career games accumulating 20-plus points and 10 assists in NBA history. So 20 points and 10 dimes career-wise, most games. Attributes quickly. 1, ball skills. 2, range shooting. 3, physical driver finisher. 4, frequent free-throw maker. And 5, goodwill Eiffel passer. So 20 and 10 career-wise. There's a dozen. Number 12 all-time, Gary Payton, 149 times he did it. Number 11, Steve Nash, 162. Number 9, tiebreaker between Kevin Johnson and Tim Hardaway Sr. They did it 170 times, 20 and 10. Number 8, on point, Trae Young. In his career, he's done it 174 times, including that masterpiece versus the Jazz on Tuesday night, including that buzzer beater from 49 feet that broke the Jazz heart. Number 7, I had the pleasure to coach this guy for 16 years. John Stockton had 20 and 10, 184 times in his career. Wow. Number 6, Isaiah Thomas. He did it 209. Number 5, he plays for the San Antonio Spurs as we speak right now. Chris Paul has done it 229 times. Number 4, he plays for the Clippers as we speak right now. The only lefty on this list, James Harden, did it 238 times. Number 3, he plays for the Denver Nuggets right now and has played very well for them. Russell Westbrook has done it 256 times. Number 2 all time, he did it with a smile. Magic Johnson has done it 263 times. And the number 1 player in NBA history to get 20-plus points and 10 assists in an NBA game has been LeBron James. He's done it 282 times in his career. Quickly, on this list someday, very shortly, will be Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic. So 20 points and 10 dimes, NBA history, LeBron James, one of many records he is setting.
Unbelievable.
282.
282 times. You have what is kind of a career day for some people.
Oh, absolutely. If you get 20 points and 10 assists in a game, you're feeling good about yourself. LeBron's done it 282 times.
Unreal.
And Luka and those guys and Nikola Jokic, they're heading up that ladder. Thus, that's my list, Sean, today. I love giving out dimes.
We are often beneficiaries of the Gordy Chiesa assist here on ESPN 700, especially for the second hour of the show on a Friday. Good to see you, my friend.
Thanks, Sean. Peace out.
All right, we're going to come back, talk a little bit more about this college football playoff semifinal tonight. It'll be Texas and Ohio State, and also Utah connections on the 2024 NFL All-Pro team. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
When did the hatred for the Ravens start? Or, well, both ways here.
Yeah, I mean, when they moved from Cleveland to Baltimore, I just called them the Browns. I mean, they can call themselves the Ravens, but I call them the Browns.
Wow.
And they're the same team that were up the turnpike. We're going to go east instead of going north. But they're still the same team we don't like. They're still the same team we take very personal with. And so, then it probably happened right around that 2000 era when Ray Lewis came in and started doing the dance. And then we were going back and forth with the division at that time. And I think that's the real rivalries are kind of bred. You know what, Dan? It's like when you are both fighting for that division and you find yourselves on top, and then we were both kind of identically built. We was about kind of a run the football, play defense, impose yourself on the other team. And we kind of took pride in that physicality part of the game. And I think the early 2000s, that was absolutely identified, and that's what that game was all about.
That was Bill Cowher on how the hatred in what is actually a real rivalry in NFL football, Steelers-Ravens, got started. That's from the Dan Patrick Show. You can hear the Dan Patrick Show daily, 7 to 11 a.m. on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Final hour of the show on a Friday. We've got the airing of grievances coming up in 23 minutes. Fire those bad boys up at 877-353-0700 at Real OC Sports. James will have a grievance to air. I should ask Gordy if he had any grievances to get off his chest.
We gotta make that a thing, especially when they're in studio, even if it's not if it doesn't go through the airing of grievances segment. We gotta just a cursory. Hey, do you got a grievance to air?
I might have to air a grievance with Sam Macho's outfit on SportsCenter right now. I'm not on board with. But in any case, Gordy also doesn't strike me as a guy who holds a lot of grudges or would need to air a lot of grievances. He's very laid back. He's very good-natured.
Whatever his grievance is, it'll be incredible because we don't hear him complain very much. Yeah. It'll be that rare, like, oh, wow, I've never seen this side of him before.
Also, Sarah Todd, if you're listening today, please call in 877-353-0700. Nobody's ever aired a better grievance than Sarah Todd.
I'm gonna keep an eye on the phone line for her. She does listen to the station when she's not on it.
I would love to hear what the new grievance from Sarah Todd is, because she said she's a professional complainer.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's amazing. The other thing we need to get, that's the other thing we should do. We should get a little trophy that gives us we give away to a guest as best grievance of the month or something. Best grievance of the year. That we should make this a bigger deal with our guests.
The best grievance?
Yeah.
Well, right now, Sarah Todd is running away with best grievance.
Yeah, best grievance of 2025, Sarah Todd.
If you didn't tune in live for when she aired her grievance against Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote the Sherlock Holmes.
The original Sherlock Holmes?
She was reading
volumes, she said. They're volumes.
Yes, she was reading the original Sherlock Holmes and had to stop because she just turns out she hates. He's like, he's a bad writer, which is so wonderful.
And if you want to hear all of it in all its glory, check out the Sean O'Connell podcast from last Friday.
Oh, I love it. All right. So NFL wildcard weekend, we've got the triple header Saturday, right here on ESPN.
Sunday's the triple header. Saturday tomorrow there is a double header, but we got Utah
basketball.
Utah basketball, so we will not have the tomorrow's double header. We will have the triple header on Sunday, and then we'll have the Monday Night Football game. It was moved from LA to Arizona, a neutral site Rams home game.
One of the many incredible matchups this weekend is Ravens Steelers, and the question a lot of people have, the question many people want to start asking, Lamar Jackson is probably on his way to winning a third MVP award, and if the All-Pro voting is any indication, he beat out Josh Allen for the first team All-Pro quarterback position, which I mean, if you're the second team All-Pro guy and then you win the MVP, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but
it's happened in the NBA with MVP, but that's big. Yeah, the position thing made it that way. But yeah, I don't imagine it's happened very much in the NFL.
Right now, Lamar Jackson is 2-4 as a starting quarterback in the playoffs, and he has addressed this. He's talked with sports psychologists about this. You've seen plenty of things written and said about it. He's got to win the big-time playoff games, and he's going to have to start with a divisional rival with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who they backed their way into the playoffs. They've been
4 straight losses. Is that right?
Yeah, they're not playing good football right now, but that's something to keep an eye on. And as long as I mentioned the All-Pro voting, I wanted to give a little shout out to the locals. I'll give you all the All-Pro teams, but first team All-Pro selections on the offense. Lamar Jackson, as I already told you, is the starting quarterback, is the first team quarterback. No surprise here. Saquon Barkley is the first team running back. They still do a fullback because old habits die hard, and that's Patrick Ricard of the Ravens.
He's one of the few that actually – it's like the Ravens and Niners are one of the few that actually employ the old-school fullback.
That's
and
right.
Juszczyk is a little less old school because they use him in the passing game a ton.
Dude, Patrick Ricard, by the way, is like 285 pounds.
Yeah. He looks huge on TV.
He is a tank of a human being.
He looks the way that Cam Scatteraboo looks in college. When you're watching college football, Arizona State games, that's what Ricard looks like with, bigger men in the NFL.
Brock Bowers, first team All-Pro tight end. No surprise there after he broke Puka Nakua's 1-year-old rookie receiving record. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I think these two were the only unanimous selections of first team All-Pro. Amon-Ra St. Brown. And those are the 3 first team wide receivers. On the offensive line, Tristan Wirfs of the Buccaneers, Joe Tunney of the Chiefs, Creed Humphrey is the center for the Chiefs. These other 2 are wild, okay? Quinn Miners. Do you remember when they did the whole, Quinn Miners pre-draft stuff? Do you recognize the name Quinn Miners? He's a starting guard for the Broncos.
Where did he go to school?
Wisconsin Whitewater.
Okay, yeah, I don't remember.
Which is why they did the thing on him, right? Because he was this mulleted Division III guy with an old school mentality about everything. He worked out barefoot. A lot of his off-season workouts were literally he would chop wood at, I think it was like his uncle's cabin.
He did the Rocky IV workout.
Dude, it was exactly
Did he yell,
that.
Drago?
I distinctly remember watching this piece, and if I'm correct here, he took the camera crew to this cabin where he just carried wood around as his off-season workouts. He's just doing the Drago Rocky IV training montage.
Do you think it was more like Parsons?
And I think it was on an island in one of the Great Lakes or something.
Oh, was maybe Mackinac Island? No,
but just something
one of those.
No, Mackinac Island is famous tourist spot.
Yeah. Okay, this is like an empty.
This
island.
was
Gotcha.
It's like his uncle has a cabin on the island and he just chops wood. But anyway, Quinn Miners, to go from being a Division III offensive lineman to a first team All-Pro offensive lineman is bananas. That's a crazy, crazy thing. So good for him. And then the right tackle, the first team All-Pro right tackle is Penei Sewell, who, of course, prepped down there in St. George and then was a University of Oregon standout, and his brothers are well known as, the family is well known here. His dad was coaching at Orem for a while. Unbelievable. The story of Penei Sewell, and anytime there's a reason to mention this, when you go and you read the article, I think it was the Sports Illustrated article about the circumstances they came from in Samoa and the house they lived in and the description of what life was like and how much they all loved it, by the way, and then came to the United States, and the opportunity has exploded as, the brothers are all on NFL rosters right now, and Penei is the best at his position in the NFL and is a guy we talked about the other day, the best high school players from the state of Utah ever. He's the only one who's got a chance to match Merlin Olsen's accomplishments as a football player. He was an All-American like Merlin was. He won an Outland Trophy like Merlin did. He's an All-Pro like Merlin was. he's going to have to do it consistently for like the next 10 years to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with that legend. But Penei Sewell right now is absolutely unreal as a football player, and he's one of the reasons that Jared Goff is so successful right now, and he's one of the reasons that the Detroit Lions are the best team in the NFC.
Early, like, teaser grievance in regards to
you're doing teaser grievances?
In regards to Penei Sewell, not about him, not towards him at all.
Good luck airing a grievance with Penei Sewell. Go for it.
No, it's not with Penei Sewell. It's with Chris Collinsworth's one that comes to mind that calls him Penny.
Oh, just get it right, Chris.
Get the names right. There's probably others, but the Lions have been on Sunday Night Football a lot the last 2 years, and so I can hear Chris go, Penei Sewell, so good.
Don't do that. Please don't do that.
It's Penei. Even if you're not gonna, even if you pronounce it a way that Polynesians are gonna look at you sideways, at least say it like the pasta. Then you're close enough. Okay.
Okay, that's James's recommendation. On defense, first team All-Pro defense, Myles Garrett of the Browns. As I said earlier in the week or maybe last week, Myles Garrett is rapidly becoming the defensive version of Joe Thomas. Best at his position on a hapless, helpless, ridiculous Browns defense. That's exactly what Joe Thomas was for years and years and years on the offensive side of the ball until he retired, and then he lost like 100 pounds and now has a six-pack. Joe Thomas is so terrifying to see.
Yeah.
Dude, he is the scariest dude.
It's amazing these great offensive linemen, how quickly they're able to get into just jacked shape. I mean, obviously they know how to work out, so that helps. But like Jeff Saturday is another guy.
Well,
shed a bunch of pounds and is jacked.
The reason is it's one of two ways, right? Because if you're a guy who's naturally enormous, when you retire, you're probably going to get even more enormous. You're going to go the way of like Kendrick Perkins.
Yeah.
Or Trevor Maddich, right? And you're just going to keep growing. Or you're going to do the other thing if you're Joe Thomas, and there's a lot of guys, Jordan Gross is like this. There's a lot of guys, and the reason is because you were just forcing yourself to weigh 300 pounds throughout the entirety of your career. A lot of these guys had to eat and lift way more than they wanted to maintain that size, which is a good problem to have. If you're 6'5", and your body wants to be 250 pounds, good for you. That's like the ideal human build, right? But there are guys, of course, who are 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", like Jeff Schwartz. He's 6'7", 340 pounds, and it doesn't matter what he does. He works out a lot. He eats pretty well, and that's just how big he is.
He's just a big guy.
He would have to starve himself to get all the way down because he's naturally that big.
Or Shaq. Like, Shaq's another one that – his body just needs to be over 300 pounds or over 290 pounds.
I'm actually curious to see, like, we should catch up with all the former offensive linemen that went pro from the University of Utah after their careers. Like Garrett Bowles. Is Garrett Bowles going to be a guy who gets lean and mean like Joe Thomas did?
Joe Thomas, yeah.
Isaac Asiata, who I think is back on the Utah coaching staff now, if I'm not mistaken. Isaac, he seems like, oh my gosh, he's a huge guy. He's smaller now than when he played.
Yeah.
Right? He was forcing himself to be that big in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So very curious. Do you remember John Cullen, who played for offensive line for the University of Utah, was an all-conference offensive lineman?
I think it was before my time.
Played tackle. That dude is ripped. He plays rugby now. He's shredded. It's crazy. Anyway. All right, Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, first-team edge rushers. Interior defensive linemen are Cam Hayward of the Steelers and Chris Jones of the Chiefs. You'll notice that the Chiefs have some really good players on their team, even not named Patrick Mahomes.
Interesting. I would never have guessed that, OC.
First-team linebackers, Zach Bond of the Eagles, Fred Warner of the San Francisco 49ers, obviously the local connection there as a former BYU Cougar, Roquan Smith of the Ravens, Patrick Surtain of the Broncos, Derek Stingley Jr. of the Texans, our first-team corners. Slot corner, Marlon Humphrey of the Ravens. The safeties are Kirby Joseph of the Lions, Xavier McKinney of the Packers. And I have to shout this one out. Brendan Schooler of the Patriots is the first-team All-Pro special teamer. Brendan Schooler was a University of Arizona guy, I think under Kevin Sumlin. one of the people who just couldn't stomach staying there any longer.
Yeah.
The fact that he has not only stayed on an NFL roster, but he's a first-team All-Pro special teamer, very, very impressive. Second team offenses, that's where you find George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, Derrick Henry, Josh Allen, Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown. Both of the Eagles' starting offensive tackles, Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, are second-team tackles. Quentin Nelson of the Colts, Frank Ragnow of the Lions, Chris Lindstrom of the Falcons is the other guard. Edge rushers on second-team All-Pro are T.J. Watt, Nick Bonito of the Broncos, and Andrew Van Ginkel of the Vikings. Interior linemen on first-team All-Pro defense, Zach Allen of the Broncos, Jalen Carter of the Eagles. Linebackers, Frankie Louvu of the Commanders, Bobby Wagner of the Commanders. Bobby bleepin' Wagner.
How old is he now?
He's 34 years old.
34 and what?
He's
more than a dozen years into his career, and he's still an all-pro player.
Okay, so Bobby Wagner has played since 2012 in the NFL, okay? He has started, he started something like 90% of the available games in his NFL career. He has been first-team All-Pro since 2012 when he became a professional. First-team All-Pro 6 times. Second-team All-Pro 5 times.
11 of his
13 seasons in the NFL, he has been not a Pro Bowler, All-Pro. 9 times he's been in the Pro Bowl, which is more of the popularity contest.
If people are a little confused as to what the difference is, it's All-Star versus All-NBA in basketball terms.
Yes. And if people are confused about that, it's as a player, you want to be recognized as both, but you especially want to be recognized as All-NFL, All-Pro.
Yeah.
You want to be recognized as All-NBA because that's the folks with informed perspective are saying you are the best.
Yeah.
That dude,
and it's way less of them than the All-Stars or the Pro Bowlers, too.
3 times he's been the tackles leader in the NFL.
Yeah.
He is a surefire Hall of Famer.
You were saying he leads the Commanders in tackles this year, too, in his 13th year.
Dude,
right?
that guy is unreal.
Still leading the team in tackles. He's so good. I was saying off air while Gordy was still in here, there's going to be a great debate. Now, obviously, if Fred Warner never wins a Super Bowl, that's going to be a trump card for Bobby Wagner. But there's going to be a great debate, if there isn't one already, which linebacker from a Utah college had the best career, at least in the last 10, 15 years, Fred Warner or Bobby Wagner. Right now, feels like Bobby Wagner, but he's also been in the league a little bit longer.
So to compare, 4 times. So Fred Warner, Bobby Wagner. Fred Warner is 28 years old. Okay, he's been first-team All-Pro 4 times. He's been in the NFL for how many seasons now? He's been in the NFL since 2018.
Okay, so 6 less years. So he's. What? That's 2
Fred,
years. That's one or 2 years without
Fred.
Making first team All-Pro.
I'm a huge Fred Warner fan. He's the best linebacker, which is my favorite position to watch in the league, and he plays for my favorite team. There's not a bigger Fred Warner fan than me on the planet. But Fred, you're behind the pace that Bobby Wagner has set right now. If you want to be the best linebacker ever to come out of this state, you got to step it up, dude, because he's already 3 years of his NFL career, he has not made All-Pro. And Bobby Wagner has only missed it twice.
Yeah. So
Come
he's going to have
Fred.
Fred's got to go 20 years now.
4 times first-team All-Pro. Yikes.
So good in your first 7 years. Both incredible.
And by the way, Fred Warner right now has a commercial. Have you seen the commercial?
Yeah.
It's him and his wife.
Yeah.
Like just sitting by a pool or something. I don't even know what product they're advertising.
I don't know either.
But it's like, oh, cool.
I only see it on mute when we're here at work, so I don't know what it is either. But there's Fred Warner with his wife chilling.
I don't want to overgeneralize right now, but 100% he had to meet that wife in Utah, right?
Yeah, probably.
Like somebody inform me, 877-353-0700. that looks like somebody he met while he was at BYU. Okay? I'm generalizing there, but I think that's what I said.
This is a new version of what we did yesterday. People who look like football coaches and people who don't.
Yes. Bobby Wagner of the Commanders, once again All-Pro. Trent McDuffie of the Chiefs, Christian Gonzalez of the Patriots are the second-team corners. Derwin James, the slot corner. Kyle Hamilton and Budda Baker are second-team safeties. And I don't care about the other special teams guys enough because there's no local connection or even like serious Pac-12 connection.
That is a heck of a second team. Like those names and how good they've been this year. Like you read that, if you hadn't have read them in order and you would have guessed which one's first team, which one's second team, you'd have a hard time guessing which was which because they're both those groups are so good. As they are every year, but it feels like this year.
That would have been a better way. That would have been a better way to do it.
Yeah.
As the producer of the show, you should have told me to do it.
You're right. But you're the boss right now.
Well, yeah, but the producer.
You're right. No, but that's an incredible second team. Tells you how good the first team is based on how good that team is.
Also, what the heck is wrong with you 49ers? You have 3 All-Pros and you can't even make the playoffs? Get out of here. I find that upsetting.
Grievance. Teaser grievance. From OC.
You're not wrong. I got grievances, man. We're going to air our grievances here in just a couple of minutes. 877-353-0700. If you'd like to weigh in with your grievances, unburden yourself before you head into the weekend. And also, you can tweet them at us at RealOC Sports. ESPN 700 is excited to announce the 29th annual Morris Columbus Travel Expo happening at Mountain America Expo Center January 24th and 25th. Listen in with Spence Checketts for your chance to win a pair of tickets to the expo. Details can be found at ESPN700sports.com. An airing of grievances next on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Get it off your chest before you head into the weekend. 877-353-0700. That's how you get a hold of us. You can call us, you can text us, and tell us what your grievance is. Get it off your chest, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're going to do. James Peterson, dressed fully in Ohio State gear. I will choose not to air a grievance against that.
I was just going to say, now we got tons of texts for some reason. You said something about what I'm wearing, and now tons of grievances.
All right. Would you like to air your grievances first, sir?
Yes, mine is sports related, and it's been one that's bugged me for a long time about the NFL. NFL playoffs are incredible. One of the best playoffs months in sports. One huge flaw. Stop making teams with better records have to play road games. Stop it.
Okay. That's your grievance.
That's my grievance. You got you have the Commanders 2 wins better than the Bucks. For some reason have to play a road game because they didn't win their division. You have the Vikings are 14, they're a 14-win team. They have to play every game on the road.
Okay. But they didn't win their division. That's the problem.
Okay, but they have to.
So
it should be a crime that, in particular, that the Vikings don't get a home game.
So let's flesh this out. We have gotten now to a point in sports where I think the generally accepted idea is we prefer absolute results over divisional results, right? Conferences have gone away from the division model for the most part. It's just number 1 versus number 2 in all of the major conferences in college sports, right?
Yeah.
The NCAA tournament, while it allows automatic bids for conference champions, does not give any special seeding just because you won a conference championship, right?
Yeah.
College football playoff is kind of the last stand for, and the NFL playoff are the last stand for divisional or conference.
Baseball too.
Baseball too.
Yeah, so you got 3.
So you're an absolutist.
Football. Yes, because
you're an anti-dentite record absolutist is what you are.
Because why? I mean, I know in football is not like basketball and baseball where you play every team. Now baseball, they play every team at least one series. Basketball, they play every team at least 2 games. But it just doesn't make any sense when you have proved that you are a better team. The way that we know how good a team is how many wins they have versus how many losses they have. But because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Los Angeles Rams, for example, the Houston Texans play in very weak divisions, and all they needed was 10 wins. Some years, all you need is 9 wins to make the playoffs.
There was a time when the Seattle Seahawks made it to the playoffs with a 7-9 record.
7-9 record. 8-9 we'll see at some point. Because of that, they get a home game versus a team who's a 12-win team like the Commanders, 12 or 11-win team like the Packers. Like, come on, give me a break here. The Packers now are playing the Eagles, so that lines up record-wise. But, like, can we stop it with this? They deserve a home game because they won a division that wasn't very good. Can we stop?
We can.
We need to.
All right. I think that's a worthy grievance.
Yeah.
But I think there are 2 categories. I think that there are people who still like the old kind of like division conference sort of thing, and then there are people who are absolutists, and it's just like, no, give me. I mean, we've talked about this in the NBA because there's times when the West is way better than the East. There's times when the East is way better than the West, and they've floated the idea.
Seeded 1 through 16.
Yeah, they floated the idea, but then like, how do you? Then you don't have conference championship series.
That one is I'm less into, but I obviously understand it because you're talking about two different conferences versus 5 different divisions, like and conferences. Like I'm bugged by baseball too. You're the not your Giants, you're a Twins fan, but I think of that because of your San Francisco ties with the Niners there. But the Giants and the Dodgers a couple years ago, best records in baseball, they had to play in the division series because of this wacky setup. Like,
yeah, okay. All right.
That should be an ALCS. Anyway.
Fair enough.
That's my grievance.
Fair enough. All right. I've got a couple of grievances I want to air. First, a sports-related one. Al Michaels, I'm airing a grievance. Finally, I got to do it. All right? You're one of the most respected, incredible, accomplished broadcasters in the history of sports broadcasting. I'm airing a grievance because it's clear that your time is now finished. You're done. Okay? He's no longer throwing the fastball, James, on the broadcasts, but when asked about it, he is leaning toward coming back and broadcasting games in 2025 on Prime. Just don't, Al, you have done more than enough. You've been unbelievable for so long. Die a hero. Don't let yourself live long enough to become the villain. Are you not listening to the show, Al Michaels? Are you not? Please.
That's fair. He's
time.
certainly, as you said, has lost his fastball. I wonder if he feels a bit rejuvenated that after this year they finally had some good Thursday night games. And he's like, you know what? I could do another year of this. But I'm with you.
Probably is it. Like the Thursday night games were not so bad.
Yeah.
And he's like, because you remember the 2023 season, he was openly like, yeah, these games stink.
These games
They're
are
not
awful.
good games.
But this year there was a couple of stinkers, but most of them were really good. So maybe he's like, you know what? If it's going to be like this, I could do at least another year. What do you think of Herbie on NFL games? Do you like him on the Prime next to Al Michaels?
Yeah, he's fine. I think you would do better putting him with someone he's used to working with.
Yeah.
I think that it would make a lot more sense to have like Fowler and Herb Street.
Yeah, which we've seen Fowler do some NFL games with the double Monday night thing on ESPN.
I mean, just do that.
Yeah.
You know, I think that the Sean McDonough, Greg McElroy pairing was excellent, and I think it's excellent because you can tell that they like working together. They do a good job working together. They have chemistry. When you're talking about the elite product, right, I don't think people understand how difficult it is to have quality chemistry with a broadcast partner when you're just thrown together. And a lot of guys, when you're talking about the low-level college football games or like the Tier 3, Tier 4 college football games in any weekend selection package, you got to remember that a lot of times these guys just got together this season, right? Or the bowl package, like, hey, you're gonna be the color analyst with this play-by-play guy you've never worked before, and vice versa. And the sideline reporter is going to be someone who you've never even met. You don't work in the same markets. You've never seen each other or heard each other or probably even paid attention to each other's work before. That's a difficult thing to do. Put the broadcast crews together. Let Herbie stay with Fowler. Let it be Holly Rowe on the sideline. Like, package deal, man. That would be a much better version of sports broadcasting. And the NFL can afford to do it however the heck they want.
Well, in the standalone games, the Monday, Thursday, and Sunday night football games, that especially needs to have that great broadcast.
I agree. I think so.
Like Jim Nantz and Tony Romo has been regarded as as the best, if not among the best, if not the best broadcast crew. Because they're on CBS, the NFL's never able to say, hey, let's put maybe our best broadcast crew on one of these standalone games, except for the Super Bowl. So that sort of thing, it's like that's what the NFL should be thinking.
And I think a nice thing now in sports broadcasting, if you are one of these best in the world type people, it doesn't necessarily help the rest of us who are just yahoos, but the big products, the big-time networks, and the big-time leagues, they're willing to pay whatever it takes to break your exclusivity agreement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the territorialism and the, hey, no, that's our person. We're not going to let them have that opportunity because he's an ESPN employee. We're not going to let him call games on Amazon. That has gone away in a lot of cases because leagues and teams and networks are willing to spend. And that's a good thing because then the fans can get the best version of something. Inside the NBA, that network loses the NBA rights and people are devastated. And they're like, well, all right, let's make some phone calls and make sure that fans can still have what they want.
ESPN, ABC.
You know, like we're a multi-billion-dollar company, if we have to give a little bit extra to Turner so that fans can get what they want and that we can get ratings for ourselves, let's do it.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's good. That's an anti-grievance. That's the opposite of a grievance.
Yes, but no more Al Michaels. You think he should just ride out on top?
I just think, Al, you've done a great job for a long time. If it's not there anymore, it's not there anymore. Give somebody else the opportunity. Call Chris Fowler and be like, it's yours, buddy. All right, another grievance I got to air, and people are going to be mad at me for this one. James, I am on the daily shopping for dogs right now. I'm looking for dogs. I have learned in the last couple of weeks the number one reason that all of us should just adopt, don't shop, is because dog breeders, my grievance is with pretty much all of you. The breeds that I'm super into are being completely destroyed by trying to add continuous bulk and size and get away from the fact that these are dogs that need to be able to run around and play and have fun, and maybe if what you're going to use them for is protection or police work or whatever, like that breed needs to have that ability. All of the Mastiff breeds, which I'm very, very into the large dogs, the Mastiff breeds, James, everyone's just trying to make them as big, heavy, and gigantic as they possibly can right now, and I can't stand it, okay? So that's one of the sub-grievances with dog breeders right now. And the other one is with anyone who's got like an accidental litter of puppies, which is the equivalent of the adopt, don't shop thing, right? You go on KSL, and you're just like, oh, look, here's a Great Pyrenees German Shepherd mix. Nobody planned that. Nobody planned that, James. And they're just like, this puppy, only $1,500. Knock it off. Stop it. All right? Doodles, we talked about the whole doodle.
No more doodling of dogs.
You don't have to doodle every dog, all right? But that one even makes more sense because what you're doing is like, hey, I've got this, whatever, like this big, gigantic, slobbery St. Bernard, and you don't want it to be hairy and slobbery, so I'm going to breed it with a poodle. We're going to make it a St. Berdoodle, and I'm still going to charge you $3,500 for it. It's like, what are you talking about? But at least that, they then become less drooly and hypoallergenic potentially.
Yeah. Or like, this dog is so cute, but it would be cuter with curly hair.
I don't love that.
Kind of doodling.
Also, like the French Bulldog people, all you French Bulldog people, those are great dogs. They're awesome. They're cool little dogs. You've gone completely nuts with the French Bulldog thing, all right? Knock it off, everyone. So, grievance with the dog breeding whole situation. If you don't want your dog to have puppies, there are measures you can take. If you do want your dog to have puppies and you don't want it to be a purebred, don't then try to offload the puppies at massive profit to yourself because your dog got into the neighbor's yard. Just like, hey, Rottweiler Chihuahua designer breed. No, that was an accident. Stop it.
That was a science experiment that went wrong.
I'm not paying $1,000 for an accidental dog, okay? Stop that, everybody.
You forgot that the customer has the leverage here because you can't do anything with these puppies.
But seriously, adopt, don't shop. That's what we're going to have to end up doing, I think, because there's just it's a great idea. My first and best, first and a great dog that I had was a product of the Humane Society, and that's just the right way to do things. I wanted to take more control of the process and be like, I want a dog that's a certain size and a certain temperament because I have small children, and I want to be able to control as much as I can control, but it's just not worth the hassle, I don't think, because all the dogs, I'm like, okay, let me get one of these. I'm familiar with this breed. People are just destroying them by turning them into pigs, and it bothers me. I got that off my chest. I feel better now.
I'm glad you did.
Last grievance.
Serenity now.
Last grievance I want to air, and I'm echoing this from someone on our text line, and I actually love that they brought this to my attention again because it's a 12-year-old problem, but grievance with the Notre Dame too shiny helmets. The helmets are too shiny, James. The glory days of Notre Dame football, going back, it was like from 1965 to like 2011, they had the same sort of matte gold finish, okay? It was gold. It was real gold. It was gold flecked, whatever, but it was not excessively shiny. It was just a nice, cool gold helmet. And now you get it's too shiny.
Yeah, I'm looking just for reference. I was looking at Jerome Bettis Notre Dame pictures. Yeah, that's a much better helmet.
It's a beautiful matte gold, right? It's great.
And then right next to it is a Rivals commitment picture, and it's today's. Yeah, the matte is much better.
The matte gold is way better. You're about to win a national championship. Knock on wood. Okay,
you are.
You haven't done that since 1988. You know what the helmet looked like in 1988? It wasn't too shiny. Let's go, Fighting Irish. Bring them back.
They're about to win a national championship, OC?
That's why I said knock on wood.
Okay.
Shout out to Texter.
I can't even – I was nervous even saying that because it's a game day, and I'm so nervous for some reason about this Ohio State team that looks way better than everyone else right now.
Airing a grievance with James Peterson, getting a little too cocky about Ohio State. Reading your own bulletin board material here, James. You're starting to get the headlines and internalize them. That's going to come back to bite you. We'll talk about that on Monday when you're crying because they lost this game.
You know, I might be sick that day.
All right, we'll take another quick break.
Turns out.
I've got a trivia question for you. We'll give away a couple of tickets to the Utah Auto Expo. Don't go anywhere. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show wrapping up on a Friday. That means the drive with Spence Checketts is coming up. Before we welcome in Spence Checketts, a little trivia question for you, something we talked about with Gordy Chiesa on the show today. Utah Auto Expo tickets, January 17th through the 20th at Mountain America Expo Center. We talked about this. Prior to the Cleveland Cavaliers-Oklahoma City Thunder matchup, the last time two NBA teams riding 10-game or more winning streaks was what year? 877-353-0700. I would have thought that this was far more common than it actually is. The last time prior to this season that two teams with 10 or more wins behind them consecutively, I should say, 10 in a row, matching up in a regular season contest was which year? We talked about that. Bonus for you if you can name the two teams. Also, quick reminder that ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM have a cash kickoff going on. Shoot your shot to win $1,000 in cash to pay your bills by texting BILLS to 508-777-1000 for a chance to win. That's 508-777-1000. Text BILLS to 508-777-1000. This is a nationwide contest. Spence Checketts here in studio with me. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. I do know that was only the third time it's ever happened, right, in pro basketball history.
I think it was the fourth. I think there were three previous.
Okay. No, like you, when I saw that stat prior to that, and by the way, what a great basketball game. The third quarter of that game was insane, high-level hoops. But like you, when I heard that stat, I'm like, that's wild. It's only happened a handful of times in the history of pro basketball.
And that the last time was so long ago as we wait for a correct answer to come in. I mean, and we have a correct 1995.
Yeah, that's wild.
Unreal.
Basically 30 years. It's nuts. Anyway. That is nuts. Fun. I thought it was a fun college football game last night.
It was great. It was
awesome.
awesome.
It was really well played.
I thought it was, some wild stats came out of that one. Neither quarterback played particularly well, which you're going to need to do at the quarterback position if you want to win a national championship. Notre Dame made one extra play on defense, or Penn State made one extra mistake on offense, however you want to look at it, and the Irish move on. Pretty cool.
We were talking yesterday about having the courage to suck at something until you're great at it. How about Marcus Freeman, his first job as a head coach is Notre Dame?
Yeah.
That's wild, man. And he's bright. I like him a lot.
He's never sucked at anything is the problem with guys like Marcus Freeman.
Yeah.
Ohio State starter, had a little cup of coffee in the NFL, got right into coaching, and, look what he's done. But as I say, he's never sucked at anything. There were a lot of Irish fans didn't love the hire in the first place, and then some of those results early, a 2-3 loss season, and then a loss to Northern Illinois even earlier this season. When you're at a program like that, people are at your throat for any mistake you make, and the fact that he's been able to sort of stay the course and maintain his vision, maintain the culture, to use a term we overuse on this show all the time. And by the way, the players are truly bought in on the way he processed.
Certainly seems like it,
even that loss, because post game, they were talking about, hey, how did you get here after losing to Northern Illinois? And the players were like, that might have been the best thing that ever happened to us because it showed us that we got to show up every day, blah, blah, blah. So he's done a great job. At 39 years of age, he could win a national championship.
Yeah, and I think year one, they lost to Marshall at home, right?
Yes.
In South Bend. And so everybody's like, all right, who is this kid?
Exactly.
35 at the time, like bad hire. Now he has a chance to win a national championship. I've been wildly impressed at his communication style. Seems like a very effective communicator. And, their style of play, while at times not necessarily aesthetically pleasing, it does scream like Notre Dame football, For
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. He deflects credit to his team whenever he can. He's awesome.
Yeah. What do you like tonight? Tonight should be a little bit more high octane, shall we say? I think we'll see a little bit more up and down.
Yeah. I think, what's the over-under is 53.5, if I'm not mistaken, for this one. Expected to be a higher scoring game. I'm going to say Texas because everybody in their dog is on Ohio State.
You're going to zig when everyone is zagging.
I just feel like it's too scripted right now for Ohio State to be this consistently good through the playoff. Everyone's just like, oh, they're incredible. Now, look, they've got playmakers everywhere. They've got the best playmaker on the field potentially, but it's not like Texas is devoid of talent.
Mm-hmm.
Quinn Ewers is a good quarterback. I think he's every bit the equal of Will Howard. Jeremiah Smith is that best playmaker, but Golden for Texas, they got guys everywhere.
Yeah.
And they have the number 3 defense in the country, which if anybody can slow down this Ohio State offense, it's them.
One more thing here, because I haven't got your take on this. Now that we have essentially the 12-team CFP almost complete, I mean, there's really nothing else to debate about whether or not this is the right format. I think they need to fix some seeding stuff early on. I do kind of like the March Madness feel where there's a chance for a Cinderella. But just like the basketball tournament, typically Cinderella goes to bed before midnight. You're not seeing very many of them in the Final Four, and we didn't see SMU or ASU or Boise. But moving forward, but we saw them with a chance early. Do you like the format? Do you think they landed on the right format?
I think so. I think you could even go 16 teams. I'd be fine with it, and that could eliminate some of this debate about who gets first-round buys and who doesn't, I think that you're right. The seeding that can be fixed would be I heard Chris Fowler talking about it on Dan Patrick this morning. It's like in NCAA basketball, you don't get an extra special seeding for winning your conference.
Right.
It's just guarantee a spot for the conference champions, but you're not given a special seeding because of that. If you're the Mountain West Conference champion, you're probably the 16th seed every year going in. Or if you've done what Boise State did this year, good job. You're number 8, and we're going to keep you at number 8. You're number 10, we're going to keep you at number 10. I'd be okay with that. But, yes, keeping everybody involved in college football, the entire country, instead of just the Southeast or just the Northeast, is the right thing to do. And I think we already talked about this, but counterintuitively, all of the bowl games have benefited from that. Every bowl game, even the quote-unquote meaningless ones, had higher ratings this year because people are just more interested in college football.
Yep, and it is a great product, and I think last night was fun. Tonight should be fun as well, and last night was the first day of 5 straight days of really great football action. One more thing. Favorite NFL playoff weekend?
Oh, it's this one.
So you're a divisional guy, or excuse me, you're a wild card guy.
Wild card weekend because you get Saturday and Sunday, and this time Monday games.
I'm with you. I think a lot, and I love the divisional round. But this to me, yes. I mean, all 3 days, I'm a wild card weekend guy as well.
And it's just more football, man. I mean,
right.
And it's all high level stuff. It's fun stuff. Everybody stay tuned. You can listen to those games. We've got the triple header this weekend on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. We've got college hoops tomorrow, and you've got the drive coming up for the next 4 hours. So don't go anywhere. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. Thanks to Gordy Chiesa for joining me for an hour in studio, for Bill Riley for jumping on early. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network.